You said feminism was
neutral. Here's what actually happened.
The foundation of all knowledge.
I'm really mad that
what difference does it make, right? What
Stop.
the deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
And to lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong. Yeah, you're promoting, right?
Ideologies that make that the politics, right? This is my ideology.
So 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage? The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, they dead? With a crowbar, you say?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, bringing to you live another Moderator Monday on a Friday evening. I know, but it is our 2v2 series, and we love it. We're ready for it. Let's go. This evening, I have with me some new folks here at Mater Nation. We've got Mojo Rising, Vince Wilson, critically thinking veteran, and of course, our regular, very well known here, Admiral Gibbs, all ready to have some fun. The prompt of the evening is Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate. Mojo, since you are on the affirmative, I'm going to hand it over to you to get your opening statement in, please. Mojo?
I'm not sure if I have an echo here or not, but I'm going to go ahead and read my opening statement and see if I can figure it out.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
You probably have one of the stream togethers open.
Yeah, you probably have the stream open or something, Mojo. I can go ahead while you're fixing that. I can start mine if you'd like.
Yeah, do that. Do that, because I don't know where I have the stream open.
Yeah, go ahead and figure that out while I'm doing mine. Okay, so why is Donald Trump constantly issuing executive orders that are major power grabs of authority? Donald Trump has issued 255 executive orders so far in his second term. Compared to past presidents, he has far exceeded the rate at which executive orders are being issued. Furthermore, Trump has declared about 9 national emergencies, while Biden declared 11 over a 4-year term. It's undeniable that Donald Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate through actions such as reducing independence of federal agencies, disregarding judicial rulings, and consistently bypassing Congress. Oh, and that question that I posed at the very beginning, that was actually a quote from Donald Trump in 2012 when he posted on Twitter, why is Barack Obama constantly issuing executive orders that are major power grabs of authority? So if you don't believe me, believe Donald Trump, who believes that issuing executive orders are a power grab of authority.
Perfect. Thank you, Vince. Mojo, are you back with us? No echo?
Yeah, I think I'm all right now. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Go ahead with your opening statement, please.
All right. I'm going to give an explanation of a business practice as to why we must change the merit and experience-based practice of retention and hiring for new positions with a system of nepotism and ideology. The proper course is to create and fill political positions which will simultaneously promote the principle of political leadership and the bureaucracy and respect the professional autonomy of the career service. But this requires that the career SES employees should respect political rights too. Actions such as career staff reserving excessive numbers of key policy positions as career reserve to deny them non-career SES employees frustrate the intent. Another evasion of the general domination by career staff on SES evaluation boards, the opposite of non-career executives dominating the critical meeting discussions as expected in the SES. Career training also often underplays the political role in leadership and inculcates career first policy and value viewpoints. Frustrated with these activities by top career executives to make career professionals in positions that are not normally subject to change, who discharge significant duties and exercise significant discussion in formulating and implementing policy and programs as an exception to the competitive hiring rules and examinations for career positions. It is ordered that the director of agency heads to set procedures to prepare the lists of such confidential policy determining policy making or policy advocating positions and prepare procedures to create exceptions from civil service rules which careers hold such positions from which they can relocate back to the regular civil service after such service. This is the rationale given in Project 2025 for Executive Order 14171, restoring accountability to the policy influencing positions within the federal workforce. This is known as Schedule F. That's my.
Thank you, Mojo. I appreciate that. Critically thinking veteran, your opening statement, sir.
Is the mic working? Everything good?
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding. So, anyone that thinks that the current executive is consolidating power doesn't understand that if he didn't have the authority already there, that it wouldn't be happening anyway. Executive orders are a way to give clarification and issue new orders based off of new information, right? Or new problems that arise. The fact that those people that have been watching lazy presidents not do anything for so many decades, right? And not actually encouraging, the body politic of the government to do its job, which is how we end up at a negative net migration in 2025, reversing a 50-year trend and restoring U.S. control over immigration flows for the first time in a generation, straight off the White House website, right? And I'm scrolling down through here, and we've got literally we've got 365 from 2025 wins every single day. So you say consolidating power, and I say someone actually using force of government for good.
Perfect. Thank you, CTV. And Mr. Gibbs, to you, sir.
All right. Excuse me. Let's start with a quick definition. Merriam-Webster defines alarming as causing people to feel danger or alarm or to be frightened. You know what's alarming to me is the obvious and blatant corruption that has happened for years. The duplicitous Democrats have built a house of lies funded by fraud and insidious immigration policies. They bring people in from other countries and they launder taxpayer money through USAID and NGOs and back into their campaigns. It's no surprise that Republicans have out-earned them since Trump's election at a rate of 7-to-1 to 11-to-1 times. The curtain has been lifted, and now we are starting to see all the nasty things they've been doing at the expense of the American populace. I would be alarmed if I was the Dems and my whole future was crashing down around me. Finally, we have someone coming in and changing the status quo. But before we can get real change, Lordy, here comes the weeping and gnashing of teeth. These duplicitous Democrats have long set upon their sanctimonious asses preaching to us about their moral superiority and how they care for the poor and indigent. While in reality, the only thing they are full of is hypocrisy, practicing the same stuff they've been saying since the 1860s. I will give them credit. They had good branding for a while saying, oh, the great POTA switch happened. But that's clearly a lie. It's amazing who's going to pick up our crops is back in vogue. How we suddenly find out that the Southern Poverty Law Center was funding the Ku Klux Klan and the neo neo-Nazis, how they all have their hand directly involved in Charlottesville's Unite the Right rally. Last week, we all saw the side-by-side of Nick Fuentes and Anna Kasparian saying the same things. Boys, the jig is up, and if I was the Dems, I'd be alarmed too. However, I'm not a member of the insidious Democrats. I'm a God-fearing Texan who is sick of the baby back bullshit that's been coming out of Washington for decades. So let's talk about some of this real change that's happening. I vote local, so let's start with what's important to me. Trade deals, forcing the EU to change their beef regulations to be more competitive. Huge fan. Going after the meat packers monopoly. Huge fan. Going after fraud and illegal immigration. Huge fan. Getting rid of sanctuary cities. Huge fan. Trying to bring manufacturing to America as opposed to useless service economy. Huge fan. Enforcing America's will abroad and holding countries accountable. Huge fan. The list goes on and on. Also, anytime Trump's butted heads with the Supreme Court and they definitively rule against him, he's obeyed. Now, do I like everything Trump does? Of course not. He's a non-New York Democrat, but the Overton window has moved so far that the left has embraced what amounts to literal insanity. So, yeah, nothing to be afraid of here if you're a taxpayer who wants America to continue to be the world's superpower. It's high time for a cleaning out of the rot. And the only ones you should be afraid of, there's a vested interest in keeping the corrupt in power. If by chance you're just one of the rank and file Democrats who've been unfortunately bamboozled by these dishonest Dems and their nefarious propaganda tactics, I understand why you might resent the idea of a Republican coming in and getting stuff done. I think Trump has done a fantastic job of actually accomplishing his goals, which is rare for a politician. Every campaign promise he made feels like he's made an attempt to accomplish it, which disrupts the status quo. This may cause you alarm, but what you should be alarmed about is the fact that this could have been any of our presidents actually working for their constituents. Instead, we have the oligarchy of the corrupt leading the Dems, as we are seeing in Minnesota and California with the rampant fraud and their attempts to go after people like Nick Shirley, who is outright embarrassing them with how easily he's discovering their shenanigans. Now let's talk about what my opponents have brought up. They've brought up fucking nothing, and it's embarrassing, and I can't believe we're going to sit here with a straight face and say, oh my Lord, Trump's sitting here using executive orders to get shit done. And guess what? When the orders are unconstitutional, ruled that way, he obeys them. As I said before, CTV was absolutely correct with what he was saying. These people are mad because people are getting shit done, and guess what? The veil is lifted, folks, and they don't like looking in the mirror. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. As a kind reminder to the audience, we are going to get through the debate. We will do closing statements, read and respond to your super chats. Then, of course, your favorite part, we will move into the open panel and then full gauntlet mode. In the meantime, I think some of them are streaming up here. If you'd like to go give likes, subscribes, and shares to any of them, that would be wonderful and amazing. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I leave the floor open to you.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's hilarious that Admiral Gibbs mentioned the whole idea of fraud being in this whole thing and the blatant corruption and the status quo being changed because first of all, I can think of like Trump Mobile. I can think of the Trump $10 billion IRS lawsuit. Eric Trump actually just recently, a few days ago, went on talking about how he's winning a Pentagon contract for a company that he sits on. I think he owns it. I could be wrong in that, but nonetheless, he's part of that company. And they won they wanted 260 something like that $1 million contract. Okay. Also, it's funny to me that you're talking about Trump accomplishing his goals. I very remember him saying that he was going to start no new wars and that he was going to lower grocery prices on day one. Remember when he said he was going to end the war in Ukraine on day one? Nonetheless, so none of those arguments have anything to pertain to whether or not Trump is consolidating power at the executive branch. And I mentioned many things, the executive orders. I mentioned the fact that you talked about him ignoring Supreme Court rulings and how he's never ignored them. That's funny because Abrego Garcia ruling was done on April 10th, and he didn't bring Abrego Garcia back until June 6th and fought business for the longest time when it came to that. We also saw where he was dragging his feet trying to get refunds out, crying along the way when it came to them ruling against his IEEPA tariffs. So it's funny to me that you mentioned that, but everything you said is just untrue. And the reality is Donald Trump is just carrying in the status quo and bringing more power to the executive branch. Nothing you said is against that.
All I heard from you right there was, I have TDS, I have TDS, I have TDS. That's all I heard, bro, because literally you didn't listen to a damn thing that I said in my opening statement. And had you done that, you would have understood that Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Jackson, past presidents have done far more as far as exercising executive power inside the nation, right? And from that point, once you understand that and you look back in the past and you say, oh, past executives have done this. Well, he can't be consolidating what was already fucking there.
So executive orders, you mentioned if he doesn't already have the authority, it wouldn't be happening. That was the exact words you used in your opening statement, except the IEEPA tariffs were quite literally in the executive order. They ruled that he didn't have that emergency power to do that. And so it's funny to me that you say if he doesn't already have the authority, it wouldn't be happening, but he is doing it.
Particular way, but then he turned around and threw another way that he had to be able to do it. All that is an argumentation for administrative wording. That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, but now we have to pay back like $170 billion to corporations, right? And screw the consumers that had to pay the tariffs, right?
Oh no! You know,
what's interesting about that, though?
You just act like that, this thing happened, then there was a change, and as if people aren't going to be seeking out their money, but you're going to bitch about the time that they have to spend getting back their money. It's like, give me a fucking break. That's how any of us have any kind of fucking government. And way to be able to operate inside of it at all is having patience and understanding that things take time. Period. Point blank. End of that discussion.
Gibbs and Mojo.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting at CTV is what he said, what Vince said already, right? He goes, oh, he drug his feet. He said this twice. Oh, he did Obrego Garcia. Then he said this other one. Well, I don't know if you've ever been in trial for anything, like whether it's business or crime, or if you've ever watched a case. But, lawyers use different tactics while judges rule on stuff. And they do all these different things. They have appeals, all sorts of stuff. And you mentioned this, dragging their feet. And then you said at the end, oh, well, they got done. So Obrego Garcia got brought back eventually. These other things you mentioned got eventually changed around. Like you're saying, consolidate. But once again, like I said, anytime the push has come to shove, he's eventually followed through with the judiciary, just like every other president in history. CTV brought this up. Oh, he's talking about previous presidents. Okay, they were bitching about him blowing up the boats. Well, that's really, if you really wanted to bitch about that, we would have bitched about it with Bush. We would have bitched about it with Obama. We didn't bitch about it. Some people did, but then they kind of sat down and shut up about it. And now, you know what? Now he's blowing up the boats. And you know what? Based, like every president ever does exactly what Trump's doing. The only difference is Trump has been actually accomplishing his campaign goals, which are what he said promised to the American public. You brought up corruption. Well, we just saw the Burisma thing actually had teeth. We've seen all this other corruption with the fraud in California and in Minnesota. We're seeing this blatant. We saw the accounting error by Ilhan Omar. Like, it's crazy that y'all are going to sit here with a straight face and act like we're not seeing fraud at a rampant scale. Why is the Democratic Party all of a sudden out of money and had to take out a loan to run 2 campaigns for governor? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because they're not getting all the money from the NGOs that we're getting funded by USAID and had their money washed overseas. We know that is happening now. We have indictments coming. We have arrests being made. There's something like 400 arrests that's already been made and indictments already been done. It's just crazy that you're saying these things and you're going, oh yeah, Gibbs, they're the corrupt ones. We're going to talk about shit he did while he's not president. Like, oh, well, like crazy work, brother.
Go ahead.
Let's not forget that when Trump was asked about Iran, he said he'd bomb the shit out of it.
Hold on, CTV. It's Mojo.
Yeah, this is about the president. I don't care about Minnesota. I don't care about your stake. I don't care about the southern border, because those federal guard troops that are on the border were given by Abbott, not by Donald Trump. So that's not what we're talking about either. We're talking about Donald Trump and him consolidating power in the executive branch. Schedule F is a perfect example of that. Your tariffs that now taxpayers have to pay $170 billion for is a perfect example of that. This is a consolidation of power, and it's failing as well as succeeding. We're watching the federal government buckle at its knees right now because we don't have enough employees, and Donald Trump is replacing them with loyalists who aren't doing the fucking jobs that they were hired to do.
Keep mentioning $170 billion.
$170 billion, yes.
Yeah, that's right. They're talking about this fraud being like 20 trillion to 40 trillion in some states alone. Yeah, I mean, I get that you're going to keep trying to like push it off, and I get that y'all like frame this debate where we're going to be alarmed about, oh, Trump's consolidating power. What I'm saying is alarming is that someone hadn't come in here and clean out this fraud in the first place. You should be ashamed that you're going to sit here and be, hey, this stuff is good. I'm alarmed that someone cares about the taxpayers and wants the fraud to go away. Shame on you. Why do you hate people that pay taxes? That's what I want to know. Why do you hate
authoritarian
salt of the earth, the people that are paying for all these needs that everybody gets provided? You know what? I actually have been pretty anti-welfare. But you know what? I've seen so much fraud in this shit that, you know what? Maybe if we cleaned it up, maybe we would have some money to actually give these people and see if these programs actually work. I'm actually willing to admit that. But y'all are so evil and so duplicitous that you can't even claim that, say, hey, we need to clean out the rot in our own programs, in our own party, and you want to just shift the blame to Trump. Maybe y'all would win some more elections if y'all didn't sit here and just like, oh no, Trump bad, and actually took a look in the mirror.
Yeah, you mentioned taxpayer funds. It's actually funny that $10 billion IRS. That's Trump robbing his own treasury and you, the taxpayer, for $10 billion, let alone the $180 billion that Mojo just talked about. And again, when we talk about Trump reining in the executive branch, it kind of goes to the unitary executive theory. We've also seen this where he's trying to do this with the Federal Reserve, with Jerome Powell, where he's tried to get him fired in any way that he possibly can by opening up an investigation, which just today ended up being closed. Thank goodness. We saw where he tried to fire Lisa Cook, and the courts had to say, nope, you can't do that because he wants, and then he's trying to put in place people and his cronies in these supposedly independent. What's fake news?
You're just making shit up. You're assuming the people's intentions for
where am I making up?
Things.
Oh, I'm assuming the people's intentions. Do you know why is he firing Lisa Cook?
Doing this because of X, Y, and Z. That's assuming intentions. That's fake news. You can't do that. Bullshit.
Okay, he literally fired Lisa Cook. Matter of fact, actually, you know what? Better yet, I'll pull up some quotes from Donald Trump. Let me go ahead and pull up some quotes about what he thinks about Congress. I don't have to. I have the right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs. That's just patently untrue. He's also gone after the judiciary.
Hold on, let him finish him, and then I'll hand it back to you, CTV.
He's also told his supporters, we cannot allow a handful of communist radical left judges to obstruct the enforcement of our laws and assume the duties that belong solely to the president of the United States. We have seen where he has done executive orders to try to rein in these independent agencies. They are supposed to act in this way. Executive order, it is 14215, where he has tried to bring in all rule changes and everything that takes place in the SEC, the FTC, and the FCC, that they have to come to the White House first. We've also seen where Brendan Carr has tried to take over the FCC and cancel certain programs. This is not fake news. You can go to your own president and see where he has said exactly verbatim what he's trying to do. He's trying to rein in the executive away from the independent agencies.
You want to respond, CTV? If you don't, I have a response.
Like I said, fake news, and it just there's too much. I feel like it's too much control. I felt like the conversation was flowing fine, and it throws off the rhythm. So I don't know.
I think it's funny that, like, once again, let's just bring up, I'm going to go to one that Vince has mentioned multiple times now. No new wars. Now, see, I followed Trump all my life. I followed him, since, I guess before I was born. I was like Chuck Norris. I lost my virginity before my dad. But, in the 80s, in 1988, he said, hey, guess what? If I was president and the fucking Iran fucked around, I'd go fuck up Corn Island. I'd fucking do something about the, strait. I would do all these things. And you know what? Lo and behold, in 2026, the year of our Lord, guess what he's doing? He's over there doing exactly what he said. These fuckers tried to assassinate him. Iran's been at war since they took over their country and took out the Shah. Like, these are not our friends. Russia's not our friend. China's not our friend. Venezuela isn't our friend. Now we own Venezuela's ass. Iran's getting the whoopings. And fucking China's over here starving because they got no oil. Their economy's crashing. Russia thought they were going to get rich off this. And then Ukraine went in there, used our intel, and blew the fuck up out of all their oil-producing facilities. So it's wins all around foreign policy-wise. Trump has been going over there, getting shit done. We've actually took military tactics and new stuff we've learned from Israel. We implemented it into our programs. We got new manufacturing being built here in Texas, USOs, all sorts of stuff. Manufacturing is coming back to America, and we should be excited. We should be loving it. Beef, for the first time, within 2 years, it's projected to have the beef industry changing. You want to see changes? Eggs are down. Beef is actually about to go down. Estimated for the first time, like I said, in 75 years for a price drop if you go from 2 to 3 years of the projection. But that's because of Trump. That's not because of Biden going over here and fucking over American farmers and merchants. You know who that is? That's who did this, the Dems. They hate us. And then the Dems go, we have the audacity to tell you with a straight face, oh, Lordy, boys, shit's going to get more pricey because we don't have our slaves. If we don't have our subclass of Hispanics to come here and pick the crops for us, then God willing. And so what they do is they sit here and sell you on bullshit. And then they use these aliens that they brought in legally and illegally through the devious means to wash their money and bring them back over here. Just like we've seen with USAID, just like we've seen with the NGOs, we're seeing this track, all this fraud, it's going down everywhere. It's blatantly obvious to anybody with eyes, and you're just like, you're going, oh, but what about Trump? I mean, no, I can keep going. I keep
I'm
going.
sure you
I
can.
know that
I'm
you're
sure
not
you
used to
can.
people saying
I mean, you're
facts, but-
infatuated with slavery. I don't know why. I mean, it's fucking
Yeah,
crazy.
because it's disgusting. I'm
We're still talking
Hispanic. I'm
about,
sick of my
we're still
Hispanic
talking
friends
about
being
the
slaves.
president of the United States of America,
Yeah.
not every other state. And we're not talking about beef because you remember those tariffs that they got taken down, right? He had to rewrite some. Now we got to worry about whether those make it through the courts or not. And you're talking about Iran, where we're spending $1 million a missile to shoot down $25,000 drones. Are you serious? We're ruling the world? This is crazy. We have lost more soldiers in Iran than we lost in Afghanistan, and you guys bitch like hell about that shit.
But are you high? Do you know how many soldiers
I am
we
not
lost in
high.
Afghanistan? How many soldiers?
Yeah,
do you
in the
think we lost in
pullout for the pullout in Afghanistan.
No,
Yeah,
the total. How much time?
Yeah.
We lost in
No.
Afghanistan?
The pullout in Afghanistan.
Oh,
that you
just
guys
the
like to
pullout.
bitch about. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the entire time. You just said in Afghanistan. Like, what are we talking about? Here? You're just lying now. There's like 1,600 or like 2,000 troops lost. We've lost like 30.
Again, the pullout in Afghanistan, we have lost more troops in this fucking war in Iran now than the pullout in Afghanistan. And you guys bitch nonstop about that shit.
I need to get his dealer's number because, like, he's over here just making up facts. Like, goddamn, bro.
So,
like,
Admiral Gibbs, can I ask you something? Because I'm very curious here. We can talk all day long about whether or not Trump has accomplished his goals or done this or done that. That's a whole separate debate in and of itself. What the hell does this have to do when it comes to Trump consolidating power or not consolidating power? You're just doing this whole thing. You talk about TDS. CTV said TDS. This sounds like TDS that you're just like, I'm shouting off all the talking points, but I'm not going to actually, you're not going to actually provide substantive arguments as to whether or not Trump is or is not consolidating power. You're just like, yeah, MAGA. That's it. That's all you're saying right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this number of troops that's been lost. Right, because I just
in Iran.
There's been 13 in Iran. 13 in Iran.
13. And how many
did we
lost
lose?
in Afghanistan?
How many?
Assholes! If I'm going to have to control when I fucking speak and not speak, then you're going to control your fucking self and shut the fuck up whenever I start speaking. Otherwise, I'm just going to fucking walk out because I'm not going to have her keep correcting me. And when you assholes need to be correcting yourself. Now,
you all right, man? You're going to have an aneurysm.
Now, shut up and listen. You want to sit here and tell me that that more troops are lost in Afghanistan than have been in Iran, or more in Iran than Afghanistan, right? So I do a quick Google search. 2,456 U.S. military personnel lost their lives during the Afghanistan war from October 7th, 2001 to August 30th, 2021. Quick Google search. I go on here and I look up another one. Quick Google search for today. I look up globalmilitary.net. They're not showing any casualties of people, right? Which is kind of weird. I don't see any. You'd think that there would be, right? But they're not showing.
Maybe learn how to use Google.
But we're looking at aircraft loss. So we're going to go to the next one. EpicFuryLive.com. Let's see how many troops they're showing lost. People killed, total strikes, wounded. Where's the American losses? 6? 47? 47 wounded? 47? What the fuck are you talking about? You come out here and you start fucking lying blatantly to my fucking face, and I can't find your fucking numbers, and then you want to wishy-washy tell me that, oh, these are the get the fuck out of here. You're not a serious fucking person.
You got issues, man. You got issues. You got to see somebody about that.
I do have fucking issues. They're rated all with fucking my doctors, right? Which is none of your fucking business. But what is my fucking business and your business right now is you not fucking lying. I'm not going to listen to it.
I said during the pullout in Afghanistan, and you went on that whole diatribe
You didn't
for
say
no
the
reason
pullout
at
in
all.
Afghanistan, asshole.
I didn't
You
do,
didn't.
asshole.
Go back and watch the VOD. You did not say the pullout. You said the Afghanistan war. The whole entirety of the
said it
fucking
like
thing.
20
I was
times
listening
now.
very fucking carefully.
I'm not sure you can hear anything.
So, real quick, Afghanistan, Iran, what does this have to do with Trump consolidating power?
The power was already there. That's what you're not getting.
Yeah, I mean,
I can relate this. I can bring us back in a little bit, hopefully. I mean, it'll probably go off the rails in about 2 seconds. But we can talk about the War Powers Resolution, which Congress has succeeded to the president and said, hey, we're not going to pass this War Powers Resolution. Republicans in Congress are like, hey, we'll give you our power, President. Mr. Trump, you can do whatever you want. It tried being passed 5 times. All the times it was failed because Republicans are like, hey, Daddy Trump, we want you to do what we want. Maybe because they're scared of Trump actually trying to primary them. I'm not quite sure. But nonetheless, Donald Trump, once again, subceding that authority. And I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to try to go over the 60 threshold that he's allowed to do without having to get approval of Congress. So we're seeing what Congress is. Good.
Well, I think he needs to do. Well, you're rambling just a little bit, but directly to your point, though, right? The longer this thing with Iran plays out, the harder it hits them. So from our standpoint, from the legislative, the War Powers Act that they passed back in the 70s did more to cede power from Congress with a declaration than a lot of it that came before that. So it's Congress is not going to historically act in the way that they should in the quicker environment that we have without it getting locked up in debate. Then we just end up invaded because, they're not doing shit. That's why you have to have an executive. So the War Powers Act is literally what's allowing for the executive to have a lot of the power that he has to act on the stage. Am I out of place on that, Gibbs?
Well, I mean, I want to add to that really, okay, on top of that, Vince here, I don't know what the other person's position was, but Vince here used to be a conservative, right? He used to be I don't know exactly what it was, but I know did you Bush vote for Bush? Were you a Bush fan? I don't know, whatever. However, if you were a conservative, you voted for Bush, or you were voted for Obama, both of them used the fucking stuff, like you just said, the War Powers Act. They expanded upon that greatly. And we've never had a president with more power than when we had under Bush and Cheney with the fucking unitary executive theory, where they were pushing this and they were testing it at every level. Now, if you want to say that they're pushing it more than the unitary executive, they're like gods, then you're just hot. That's really all I can say about that. And I need your dealer's number, like I said again, because we all know that is the most we've ever had where they consolidated power, period, in history. And then that's not even count, like you said, Abe Lincoln. We can look at Andrew Jackson. We can look at all these other people. Andrew Jackson was dueling people that disagreed with him. And you're talking about fucking Trump over here consolidating power in an alarming way. Come on. Let's have a serious discussion here.
Yeah, so we can have a serious discussion. George W. Bush signed 291 executive orders over his 2 terms, over 8 years. Donald Trump, 1 year and a half, has already signed over 255 executive orders and declared 9 national emergencies.
Executive orders. Do you agree that executive orders are not just orders, but are also clarifying statements to existing orders, and there's not just something brand new? You agree with that?
But they're typically new orders. That's the whole point of an executive order.
It's not brand new. Why would you bother writing anything?
Hold on, everybody's going. Why don't we let CTV clarify his final point, and then I'll hand it Mojo, Gibbs, then Vince. I think that was the order.
Yeah, the only thing using executive orders as a way to say that that's a consolidation of power whenever they are used for other administrative purposes, I think is misleading.
Okay, Mojo?
Obviously, they're new. Otherwise, they wouldn't be written in the first place. If you're just reiterating an old executive order, there's no reason to write it in the first place. So obviously, they're new. And you seem to think that they were just reiterating. That's not correct at all. And the one that I talked about, Schedule F, is reaching the president reaching deep down into the bowels of the executive branch, into the bureaucracy, and the people that have served in their positions in government for 30, 40 years. And he's firing these people, and he's rehiring people based on loyalty tests. That's what we're watching right now, the entire restructuring of the bureaucracy that exists within the executive branch. The USDA, excuse me? Go ahead.
What are these loyalty tests?
Loyalty tests to make sure that you are politically right-wing. They are
I'm
asking,
aware
they are
what the
sending
term
out,
means, but what tests?
They're sending out questionnaires to prospective employees in order to ensure that they abide by or agree with Donald Trump's policies in that particular area that they're working for or applying for a job for.
Okay.
Is that what this language specifically says, or is it more like, do you adhere to the laws of the United States of America?
Well,
no, it's not about the United States of America.
Okay,
Sorry.
Gibbs.
Okay, I want to respond to both Vince and Mojo's point here. First, I think CTV is kind of hitting on something here. I don't necessarily agree with exactly how he's framing it, but let me take it a different way, and I think he's going to agree with what I'm about to say. First, it's kind of like when you have a machine gun, right? You take a machine gun, you spray and pray, versus you have a sniper. What's more effective, 300 orders or the Patriot Act? I think we can all agree the Patriot Act getting through Congress was much more influential on empowering the executive than any fucking one individual order. In fact, any of these orders can be reversed by the next president in charge. The Patriot Act couldn't be. So if we're going to sit here and talk about which one actually gave more power to the executive branch and consolidated power there, we got to talk about that. We can talk about, Marbury versus Madison giving power to the judiciary, right? We can see all these different things which give power to what, right? And so the act is way more powerful than any one order. Now, secondly, and this is kind of what I'm saying is the effectiveness, right? Yeah, it's effective to do an order and clean up something or do an order and get something specific done. But the long-term impact is going to be coming from the stuff pushed by Congress and this judiciary ruling what's constitutional and what's not going forward long term. So when he pushes forth an executive order that pushes the limits of his power and judiciary rules and defines that power, that's going to be the end of that game unless Congress overrules it. Now, as for what Mojo is saying here, I'm sorry, what was your point here at the end? I missed it. I had a whole thing here, but you had your what was your main thing there? I apologize.
It was a loyalty test.
Loyalty test. Oh, okay, yeah, loyalty test. Yeah. So here's my real quick on that. Used to, till I don't know. I don't remember exactly when this stopped, but they fucking used to go in every time we had a new president. Everybody that wasn't part of them got fired. So this is not any newer or worse than before. In fact, I think both sides should do this. Both sides should give out a questionnaire. And then if you have somebody in there, you put them in there. As long as they're not, and if they're doing a good job, you can keep them. But guess what? I want somebody to go in there and go, hey, I don't want people holding you up at every ounce of the law every single time going, hey, I don't want this done just because I can drag my feet. I want people to obey the law, obey the executive if their commander-in-chief orders them to do something, and then let the courts decide or let legislation decide whether or not we should be doing this, right? That's how it should be done. The executive should be enforcing the law as is or enforcing the will of the executive branch. They shouldn't be having to fight their own people within their own group. But since the Democrats have put up this system of corruption in there, yeah, he's had to gut the system and clean this out some. And now y'all are sitting there mad because, now the Dems are fucking starving. And it's real obvious they're starving whenever they have a 14% approval rating with all the frauds being exposed, when we're seeing all sorts of arrests being made. It's just blatant corruption at every level.
Vince,
now y'all going, Trump bad.
Back to Vince, quick, and then we'll open it back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to ask people, can you tell me who Jerome Powell was nominated by? I believe it was it Trump? You know, it's interesting to me. You talk about all these Democratic corruptions. It's funny to me because Trump is fighting against the same people that he appointed. He appointed Jerome Powell, and he's fighting against his own Fed chair that he appointed. There was another gentleman that he appointed. I'll have to look for it.
Well, shouldn't that tell you something? That I mean, that should be obvious, right?
Because
Vince? I mean, because like if you're willing to, if you put a person in a position and they start doing something that you don't like, and instead of just like, oh, well, we're friends, I shouldn't say something. He's like, no, fuck you. And he's still holding the principle. That's the guy I want doing that job. I want him. It's like, yeah, he sees something in the guy. Yeah, maybe he'd be good for the job. He goes in there and he's doing, no, bro, that ain't going to work. And he's got to make his case. But the other guy got put in the job that he's got. So, you know, it's that, you know, give and take between people that you want to see somebody that is holding to their principles whenever it comes to, and that's important. So I don't get why you're trying to do the wishy-washy thing.
Why it's concerning is because the Fed is an independent organization. It is under the executive branch, but it is an independent organization, meaning the president can go in, appoint a Fed chair, and then Congress approves them. And only way that he can be fired is at will. So why it is concerning is when Donald Trump is starting investigations and continuously trying to find ways to fire Jerome Powell. This is just yet another example that Donald Trump wants to put somebody in at an independent organization that'll do his bidding, thus reining in more power to the executive branch. That's literally what that means.
Well, in order for it to bring power to the executive, there would have to be like a law passed, right? Him having a relationship, being unhappy with what this person's doing based off of previous conversations that it sounds like that they previously had, probably with his attempts to explain the much, you know, larger game that we're all watching, right? Frankly, I was not aware, just being honest, right? I was not aware that the Brits had such control, still had such control over the world through the insurance and finance game that they do. And through these actions that Trump is taking, it's making it like crystal clear just how much the Brits have been having us do their dirty work. And now they're unhappy, right? Because now they're not able to use Iran as the problem that keeps their insurance rates hiked up. So
that's crazy.
Oh, go ahead, Mojo. Did you want to say
what's
something?
happening, bro?
I don't know that.
It's
I don't know
crazy.
that I don't know that I necessarily care about the insurance rates. I do care that we're using our taxpayer dollars to cover this shit right now. I think that's absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I do want to talk about the whole Schedule F thing, though. Gibbs, do you think it'd be okay if AOC becomes the president next time, and she goes ahead and changes over all of the USDA, and we regulate out of existence beef in the United States of America? Would that be okay with you?
I mean, listen, if AOC is able to get that in there and able to do that,
if she wins, you're giving her the power to do that by giving her Schedule F.
Listen, and thank God I'm in Texas because that's kind of our thing. What happens when you come for Texans is you get a country ass whooping.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna take on the White House? You're gonna go?
Listen, I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm not. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna hoot and holler and pay my fucking lobbyists to go and fucking lobby. I'm gonna see here just like I said in my opening. I'm fucking real excited about him going after the meat packers industry, right? We're breaking up this monopoly. Now, you're asking me what I would do. I'll tell you what I do. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to legislate. I'm going to sue. I'm going to hold them up in court, just like you use. We're going to use the process. And you still haven't answered my point about any one executive action, any one of them being equal to the power that was given to the executive under Bush through the Patriot. You haven't been able to handle that point because we both know that one act alone, and I can mention others, have given more power to the executive than any one or any probably 50 of Trump's executive orders. So when you're sitting here with a straight face and you're trying to divert and you're trying to say, oh, well, give us this, give us that. I'm fucking all about might makes right. I'll bite that bullet every time. If she gets in there and she can actually enforce that, more power to her. Maybe I shouldn't have let her get elected as president. That's my answer to you. But here's my thing. You can't handle my point about, look, if we go back, let's look at some other stuff. How about we look at the War Powers Act? We look at stuff that was under Abraham Lincoln. I'm just saying, you haven't answered my point about any of these executive actions that gave, all of these legislative actions that gave power to the president at these times, and you're not going to be able to. You didn't answer my point about Andrew Jackson, brought up earlier. He would literally duel people that disagreed with him, and some of them died, and then he pushed through the policy he wanted. So you're going to tell me that Trump is out there doing more than Andrew Jackson, who wanted to abolish all sorts of crazy work, bro. You just don't have any actual grasp of history if you're going to sit here with a straight face and say these executive orders are worse than all these other acts. Come on, bro. Come on.
I think we've.
You want to go?
Jackson literally ran
real quick. I just want to say that passing a law is a hell of a lot different because you have to go through a bipartisan Congress. The Constitution actually set it up for Congress to create the laws, not the executive branch. And because it goes through a bipartisan process, then everybody has to agree on it, or at least a majority. With Donald Trump, he gets to institute this shit without any sort of approval from anybody else, and we just have to abide by it.
If I'm a president and I shoot the congressman in a duel that's speaking out against my act and he dies, do you think other congressmen are going to want to speak out against that law that I want passed? No. So because that's what happened with Andrew Jackson. Yeah, he was famous for that shit. And so you keep talking about he's alarming because he's consolidating the most power of all these presidents. That's just not historically true at all. He's not consolidating power at an alarming rate. Nobody bitched about any of these other people doing it. They just let it happen. And so now all of a sudden, that because he's actually getting real change done, y'all are going, oh, we've been bamboozled by the Dems, or you're going, we got to protect that corruption. That's really the only explanation you have here to be this upset.
Well, we can solve that. Just let AOC in, and she'll go ahead and legislate or regulate guns out of existence in the U.S. too.
Yeah, I mean,
that worked out for Mexico, didn't it?
So the debate question is: Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate. And I have already listed out the numerous times where we are seeing, again, I'll say it again, executive orders. We're seeing national emergencies. We're seeing where he's removing the independence of these independent organizations under the executive branch. We're seeing where he's removing even some states' rights by saying, hey, we're going to still force you. We're going to force feed you the National Guard. Even though you don't want them, we're going to force feed it. Oh, and ICE, we're going to just throw ICE into your backyard. We don't care about what you have to say. Oh, you're voting. You're voting.
Really?
Wait about the voting. Oh, well, we're going to nationalize those voting rolls for you. We're going to make sure that your voter rolls are accurate, and we're going to make sure we purge those voter rolls. We're going to take that power away from you, states. We're going to take that power away from you, Congress. We're going to take that power away from you, the judiciary.
I did not realize that you had drank the Minnesota Kool-Aid, bro. You're a fucking idiot now. You're an absolute fucking idiot.
Well, I mean, critical thinking veteran. What did he just say? States' rights. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord. I just brought up picking our crops earlier.
Oh
I brought up the
God,
Southern
dude,
Poverty
but,
Law
like,
Center funding the
there's
Klan.
literally
Man, I didn't know we were back in
a whole population
1863
of
again.
people- There's literally a
Oh,
whole
my
population
Lord.
of people there that are defrauding everyone else in the nation, and you're sitting here defending it, right, on national television, as if it's like, you know, supposed to be.
Good
Oh
for
yeah,
you,
Raging
Tomato.
Tomato is definitely. Matter of fact, you're right. You're right. It's not national; it's international. What the fuck was I thinking, right? So anyway, right? So you're sitting here making me listen to this garbage, right? And next thing you know, you're probably telling me that Alex British was completely in his right, you know, to have the gun on him after the week before he was kicking the fucking an agent's truck, causing damage, right? And that would be a smart thing to do. You'd probably also tell me that the fucking chick that tried to run over the agent, you know, was completely within her right to try to leave a scene after she'd been ordered by a law enforcement agent to fucking stop. You'd probably tell me that now because you drunk that fucking crazy ass Kool-Aid. It's like, bro, you need to detox. You need to get the fuck off the internet. You need to go touch some grass for real, right? I don't know. Maybe go take a drive and just fight traffic for a week. Maybe that'll, you know, get you out of this crazy, like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm surprised that you can walk in here with your fucking blue hair dyed in your fucking beard now, right? Like,
So all I heard was nuh-uh. I didn't hear an actual coherent argument against anything that I stated. In fact, I heard a pivot to try to bring me and draw me into the Alex Peretti. You try to draw me into the Alex Peretti situation. I would only pose to you in that particular sense. I wonder how you felt about Kyle Rittenhouse and his right to carry a firearm. Almost did it, Mojo. I almost said the TikTok word for firearm.
You have no idea how sad I am that pedophile's dead.
Hold on.
Well, hold on. I'll bite that bullet. I'll bite that bullet.
Vince, were you, I want to confirm, Vince, were you done? I don't know if you were.
There's certain language you have to use on TikTok, and I have been terminally on TikTok doing debates with Mojo on his panels and stuff. So I ended up accidentally almost saying pew pew. It's a TikTok language thing. Anyways, let's proceed.
No, understood.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, it'll be fine. You know, you just try to follow TOS for whatever platform you be doing on that. I'm not going to be upset about that, but I'll bite that bullet. You know what? Alex Peretti, the Black Panthers, all these people, they were embracing their constitutional right to bear arms, and that's based. I think that's based. You know, now, whether they did it in an intelligent way, and whether they thought about what their actions were is a whole different question. But you know what? If you want to bear arms to defend your rights, you know what? Thomas Jefferson said the tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of patriots or some shit, right? All right, let them try. They should. That's why we have the right to bear arms. Like, you know what? I'll bite that bullet. You know what? I'm a Texan. We whooped Mexico's ass with when they came for our guns. You know, I'm just saying we're the only state that was never successfully invaded by the United States during the Civil War. I'm just saying there's a reason why you don't mess with Texas when you can mess with us. Now, as for your thing, I'm not going to go out there and be shooting the government if they're going to be coming for my guns. Probably, you know, unless things get real bad. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sitting here going, hey, let me hire my lobbyists to go in there, just like with the bee. Let's start legal challenges to get this done. I'm going to use the system. And neither one of y'all have been able to argue that what Trump has done is any more impactful, which is the whole cause for alarm, if you think it's bad, than what all these other acts have done where they gave more power to the president, like the Patriot Act, like all these other power acts that have been done, like what we had Andrew Jackson. You've not been able to give me a definitive substantive argument against that. Now, you can keep talking about these executive orders, but guess what? You can say, oh, he's fired people. Every president fires people. But the Dems literally fired Biden mid-campaign. And when you compare that, add that fucking firing in, guess what? They have the same turnover rate as Trump did. If you don't, it's slightly below it. So when you're sitting here talking about firing people, guess what? You put someone in there, and these guys are so mad when he fires someone, but then they're so mad when he doesn't fire someone. There's no winning. These guys just are hating on Trump to hate on Trump. He literally can do anything. If he cured cancer tomorrow, Lord, what about the people that worked in the medical industry? These people are going to lose jobs because Trump cured cancer. It's really the kind of argument they're making. There's a no-win scenario, and that's why they don't want to talk about the corruption with the Gibbs, and that's why it's not alarming what he's doing, because he's gutting with the corruption and this Tammany Hall bullshit the Dems have put in place, and that's why they're mad, because he's fucking came for them finally, and we're getting real change. That's what the obsession is here.
I really think, Vince, if you could show me where
let Mojo go first and go back and forth.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah. Let's go to the opposite side. We'll go to Mojo and then CTV. It's to you then. I think
did
you both
address-
started going the same time. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I did address the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is an act passed by Congress that has to be done in a bipartisan way. It has to be voted on. It has to go through committees. It's a long process. This isn't something that the president can just, use an auto pen to sign, right? Because Donald Trump uses that auto pen as much or more than fucking Biden did.
What about the Affordable Healthcare Act?
So it makes sense. So it makes sense that you would actually pass shit through Congress. That's the way the Constitution sets it up that way. That's the way we're supposed to be doing it.
What about the Affordable Healthcare Act, though?
Wait,
Hold on.
firing,
Let him finish, and then we'll go to CTV, and then Gibbs, you can throw your questions at him. Go ahead, Mojo.
as far as firing people, I mean, I'm talking about with Schedule F, they can reach all the way down into the bowels of the federal government, into all the agencies, and they can take one person out that happened to give a bad response to a customer service call for an app that they designed, and they can fire that person and replace them with a loyalist. I mean, this is ridiculous. You are getting rid of the people that are there based on merit, and you're replacing them with people that are there based on nepotism. And you guys should be against that.
CTV and then to Gibbs.
Well, the question that I had was, that was going to be my attempt to throw it back over there, was I think it would be much more useful for you guys to like at this point, to tell Gibbs and I how it is that the executive didn't have the power before, right? You're just pointing to an executive order saying, oh, they didn't have the power, right? But that's not accurate, right? Like, you're going to need to enumerate where the power wasn't there before, because like Gibbs and I both have illustrated the Patriot Act, War Powers Act, the Constitution itself, right? For a lot of the powers, right? And they're enumerated to the different branches of government. So you got to tell me how the power wasn't there before, and then how it is there now, right? Because I understand it after having read these past acts, and I'm sure Gibbs will agree, that the power that you're saying isn't there was already there. It was clarified.
Yeah,
through the order. So it's.
Yeah, I mean, to add on what he said, he brought a Patriot Act. I could start, and I purposely laid that trap with bipartisan ones because it's so easy to see how disingenuous they are. We can look at the Affordable Care Act right under Obama, and we see all the TikToks coming from the Dems going, Lord, I lost my care. Guess what? That was pushed through Congress without a single Republican vote. We see acts like this all the time from both sides where they push acts through Congress that expand the executive, which guess what? That's what the Affordable Care Act did. It expanded the power of the executive, and then they were able to do all this stuff with all how they did the Medicare, or you could keep your doctor, you could keep your insurance, and you didn't, right? And so, like, you're sitting here being disingenuous because we both know there's tons of acts that have expanded the executive without a single person supporting it from either side, or an extremely small group of people that got sold something for their pork belly so that they would side with the opposite side. And we see that all the time, and it expands the executive. That's what happens, and then the judiciary defines their power. That's what happens. We're in a constitutional republic. We see these things, and then it's just crazy to me because guess what? Like I said earlier, Vince over here brought up the states' rights thing. It's crazy. In 2026, they use the exact same argument: states' rights, boys. We got states' rights. We got to save our crops. It's literally the 1860s Dems have risen from the grave and took over the party, and then they're going to sit here with this deflecting bullshit and act like what I'm saying is not true. You can keep saying, oh, these other acts are bipartisan, but when I point to examples that aren't bipartisan, your whole case fails. And so this is not any more alarming because Trump isn't even getting some of this stuff through Congress. He's doing it through executive orders that can be flipped the minute he's out.
That's the point. He's not using Congress like the Constitution.
He is using Congress.
No, he's not. He's not using them at all. Wait, I want to talk about the ACA real quick because the ACA, I'm sorry, the ACA, the only reason that passed is because you guys keep electing presidents that want to go get us into forever wars, like the one in Iran right now.
ACA,
that's why we gain control of Congress. That's why we gain control of the House and the Senate in a filibuster-proof majority to pass the ACA. So yes, that didn't have to be bipartisan because you elected a president that starts forever wars.
No, I understand how you could say that, right? And it has everything to do with what I said earlier about the British having control over the insurance, and that's how they've been bringing in their money. Because, I mean, if you actually slow down and think about it, what the fuck is Brit making besides maybe like Mini Coopers, right? So they got to have their money coming in somewhere. So that's how they had their money coming in. So, and I can see how you see Trump doing what it's actually not the same. It's actually on a scale much larger, right? We have, I dropped way more bombs. It's epic fury with absolutely golden name for this thing, right? But anyway, he comes in and he does that, and I see how you could say it's the same thing, but because of the actions and the commitment, especially right now, with blocking the Strait, that is commitment to allowing Iran to keep filling up their reserves on Cargill and not allowing it to be able to get out because they want to keep the production going, right? When the production stops because they have nowhere else to put the oil, I mean, they're bringing decommissioned tankers back online right now to put the oil into so that they don't have to stop pumping, because if they stop pumping, right, the whole game stops for them. They're down for a long time because once the system stops, it's a big fucking deal. It's a BFD, big fucking deal. Okay. So that's the game that Trump is playing right now, is the waiting game. When that game is up and Iran has to fold, and they will, and don't forget that China imports 90% of the oil from Iran, right? They are the main buyer here. So China has a leg in this game too. They're going to be putting the pressure on. So I see how you could say that it's the same thing, but the actions that are being taken are, strategically, tactically, and just remarkably different than what we've seen from past administrations. And it's not just Trump, right? It's not like Trump is the one that's coming up with all of the military exercises that are going on. It's, Secretary Hegseth and all of the admirals and generals and chiefs and everybody below them that are a part of all of this, right? So you keep pointing to the one guy, and I would keep encouraging you on the left, which have a whole problem with understanding like the seat of power in the chair, right? And the chair is the president. It's not the person, right? So the more power that, say, Congress passes and gives it to like they say, you need to do a thing. Well, then the executive then has to do a thing because the Congress passed a law telling them to do a thing. So every time the Congress tells them to do a thing, the executive has more power to do a thing.
Welcome to the
so there
Constitution,
becomes a point. Right. So maybe we're at a critical mass point where we need to start getting rid of fucking laws. That way the executive doesn't have the power, because like you're literally the whole debate here is whether or not Trump's consolidating power, right? I guess maybe if you wanted to argue the definition of consolidate as to whether or not, okay, we understand he has the power and it's just been way out here and nobody's been using it, but by God, now he's using it. Now it's all focused and you can see it, and it's like it's in your face and you can't deny that the executive has this power now, then sure, right? If that was your argument, which it wasn't for this entire time, I probably could have gave it to you. But since it wasn't your argument, and it's actually my fucking argument now because nobody else said it, CTV wins the fucking debate. Have a nice fucking day.
Okay, so I got a question for you, CTV. Let me ask you something. Would you say that Donald Trump has obeyed all legislation that Congress has passed in his second term?
I would say that when the Supreme Court has come back and said, no, you can't do a thing, that he's backed off.
No. I'm saying like the Congress. So I'll skip over the questions. Epstein Act. That's a great one. Epstein Act he has not obeyed the Epstein Act. He has slow walked as he possibly can. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation, and yet he has still today not complied with this. And in fact, when he went and fired Pam Bondi's not going and testifying in front of Congress. They're trying to. And there's even talks then recently this past week where they're trying to potentially pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know if you know who that is. You should look her up. This is a prime example of where Donald Trump gets a piece of legislation from his own Congress and ignores it. That's a prime
kind of
example.
funny that you bring up Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Because her father was Robert Maxwell. He was very heavily involved with the British intelligence, right? So there's ties back to the British government, right? In this, it's funny. I was just talking about the British government and the insurance game, and all of a sudden they come back up again in this. Kind of should start making people start paying attention to how some of these people have been trying to control other people, right? And when this thing comes out, right, and everything, and it will, I am absolutely thinking they're not going to be able to keep holding this back the way that they are. Why? Victims. There's a lot of. I've watched a few different documentaries about a lot of this stuff, right?
What the hell?
So it's
what are we doing?
Well, I mean, you brought it. Fine. What do you want to talk about?
Well, you were supposed to talk about the Epstein Act and 534 congressmen and senators that voted for it, and Donald Trump is not doing it.
Oh, so I was supposed to. Oh, so can you?
That's
give me
what.
the script?
That's what he brought up. I don't
me,
know what you were
Can
responding
you give
to.
me the script next time? That way, I fucking know what it is I'm supposed to say.
I don't know. There's a topic for the debate.
Like I'm supposed to just say what the fuck you just want me to say, huh?
I don't know. We can talk about flying pigs if you want.
What's wrong with you? You talk to other people like that in real life.
I'm just going to go ahead and start talking about flying pigs then. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I mean, I think this is pretty clear, right? Like we have brought up example after example after example after example, and yet every single time it's but Obama, but Joe Biden. But actually, we didn't even get to Joe Biden. I'm surprised.
Great Britain.
Yeah, Great Britain. I don't know why we're not addressing the points that we're providing. I mean, we're providing point after point after point after point.
Well, hold on. Well, what you're doing here is this is a dishonest thing where you're going to say, "Oh, we're not applying the point." I've sat here, gone through each one of your points, and explained how if they're consolidating power at an epic rate or whatever, alarming rate, well, then you know what? Honestly, he's not doing that good a job because guess what? As soon as his presidential term is done, they can just say have next president if it's a Democrat, flip them all. So that already defeats point one of yours, right? Point two is I've gone through and we've talked about both bipartisan and nonpartisan bills that have been passed that expand the executive. Y'all haven't really had an answer for that. You had no answer for the Affordable Care Act. That's one that flows across. Gibbs wins on that one. We talked about the Patriot Act. Y'all said bipartisan, and then what's his name said, "Oh, it's because we had a filibuster-proof majority." Listen, there's been other laws that I could go through in history where either side have had filibuster-proof majorities, and they passed laws. If we want to use that as an argument, guess what? When I start going back through history and find other acts that have been passed that expand the executive, that defeats that point too. Now, I think you and I both can admit there's going to be examples of that when I go and start looking in about 10 seconds after I finish ranting. And so it's crazy that you want to sit here and go, "Oh, you're not addressing the point." Well, how about you do this? How about you explain to me how having a president that's following the judiciary, like whenever they come after him and not going through it, how a president that's pushing executive and pushing policy and it's getting done is any way more alarming than what's happened already, where we see clear corruption, where we have NGOs being funded, where we have potential illegal immigrants voting. We see all sorts of signature scams left and right, where we see all sorts of other things where they're not followed. And then y'all go, "Oh, this is just more alarming," whenever we see all these things that I keep bringing up and I keep seeing legislation passed that expands the executive, and you go, "Oh, that's just more alarming because Trump bad." No, that's ridiculous, because even by your own metric, he's being less effective. And if we go by this other metric that somehow we should be, you can't have it both ways. He can't be somehow more effective and more dangerous and less effective at the same time. So what is it? Is he getting pushed stuff through Congress that expands the executive? Is the judiciary coming over here and expanding the executive even more than any other president? No, neither one of those are true. He's getting legislation passed about the same rate. Now, if you want to say executive orders, well, those aren't permanent. So guess what? Even by your own metric, you fail on this topic. And it's just really embarrassing at this point, because you sit here saying we're not engaging when I go point by point through y'all's topics and show it has no teeth. Now, do you want me to actually have to go back and find other filibuster-proof majority acts posted that were not justice? Or can we just take that at face value and use the APA as an example and be good faith? Because if not, I can go and start searching right now. Like
ACA, and I was talking about the
whatever.
ACA with the filibuster.
Sure, ACA, that's what we're talking. Yeah. Okay. Do you think there's been another time
that's why I brought up
the
the filibuster-proof majority? Yeah.
Okay.
So when you guys elect presidents that put us in forever wars, then of course you're going to lose the Congress.
Once again, that didn't respond to any of my other points. Are you telling me no other time in history has there been an act that's been passed that expanded the executive with a filibuster-proof majority? Are you going to tell me that with a straight face? That's never happened once in the United States history other than the Affordable Care Act.
I don't know. I didn't live in 1850. I'm living today.
Oh, okay. So then once again, if it did happen in history, then you're fucking just being bad faith, and you're trying to use this as an example when we know this has happened multiple times in history, and it's expanded the executive on several different occasions. You have no answer for this. It defeats your whole case. And this is why you're going, "Oh, I wasn't alive in 1850. This is why you didn't want to engage in the intimidation techniques used by Andrew Jackson. This is why you didn't want to engage in all these other examples I used with Bush or Obama, and I used bipartisan ones. This is why you're not engaging with those, because you actually don't have a real substantive answer other than Trump bad.
Yeah, I got a substantive answer here. So when you talk about Congress passing a bill and it expanding executive power, sure, that has probably happened at some point in time. However, the argument
like stored
here,
energy.
I'm not done. The argument here, to be clear, is whether or not Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate. And I want to bring up a few other points here. You know, we talked about Iran. I can kind of connect the bridges here. Okay. We're seeing where Donald Trump is using national emergencies to go after drug boats in the middle of the Pacific and also going in the Gulf, or well, not really Gulf, but you get what I'm saying. In that region, right off the coast of Venezuela, he's using national emergencies as a justification for why he's able to conduct these strikes. He's also using the national emergencies to go after Venezuela. He's also trying to look at going after Greenland. None of these, by the way, has he sought approval by Congress. He's actually subverted that entire thing. And Donald Trump himself, I want to be very clear, and I'm going to use his quote. I've already used his standard, Donald Trump's own standard, that executive orders are a power grab, but I'll use another quote from him. If it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress. That is exactly how Donald Trump has been operating. It's one of the reasons why he has declared more national emergencies in just a year and a half than any modern day president that has done it. No, Biden didn't even have that within 4 years. You can't find another president that's issued 9 national emergencies within a year and a half.
You know why he was able to do that? Because the Patriot Act. Obama used it.
That's not the Patriot Act. That was not the Patriot Act he used. He didn't use a Patriot Act. He did not use the Patriot Act for the national emergency.
All right. Since you two can't figure that out, CTV, go ahead. I know you were trying to say something in there.
Well, I mean, I thought it was kind of like my turn was after Vince, you know, so I was trying to get in there that way, find out that's not the case, so I'll just be a little bit more forthright next time. That said, so government is like stored energy, okay, guys on the left, because apparently I got to like explain government to you, okay? So stored energy, okay? So like there's a law, that's energy, okay? So then what happens is it gets put in this, say, air tank, right? And it's held there. That air tank is the executive, okay? So the air tank is the executive and the stored energy is the legislation that was passed, okay? So then when there's so much legislation that gets put in there, right, the pressure starts increasing, right? And then when something needs air, right, then you take out the air nozzle and you point it at it. If you have a lot of stored energy in there, you're going to get a lot of government response for whatever it is. And you're going to have a lot more interconnectivity between the amount of power that it has because of the amount of legislation. It's kind of like how it was ironic back when Don Lemon was doing his shit, right? He was going to get prosecuted underneath the Ku Klux Klan Act. Right, there's an example of stored energy that the executive would have to use in order to prosecute. But that's the entire example of government being stored energy and why it is that he keeps saying, to bring it back to whether or not power's been consolidated, right? Like I said earlier, if it was, you know, if your argument had been that it just focused it, then you would have, but you're not. You keep trying this typical emotional argument, you know, like trying to make Trump sound bad instead of just trying to focus on the United States as a whole, right? And how our actions on the global stage are having the net benefits that people are cheering, right? The United States and Trump as a result. So it's crazy. You got Nigerians, Christian Nigerians that are cheering. You got Iranians that are cheering. You got Venezuelans that are cheering. But we got people back home that have drank this Minnesota Kool-Aid, right? Apparently we're standing in line with old Governor Walz. And they keep telling me these things, and none of it makes sense. And whenever I try to ask for clarifiers, I get more bullshit. And then I get we haven't addressed anything that I said. And I'm like, I actually did. You just weren't either paying attention or didn't have the intellectual capability to grasp what was being said, neither of which is a responsibility of mine and has everything to do with you educating yourself so that you'd be able to be ready for the next conversation.
Vince or Mojo?
Did you want to go, Vince? I thought you raised your hand.
Yeah, CTV, you said that that Trump, like you're saying something about God, Christian, something like that. Was that something like Trump? I just want to be clear.
The Christians in Nigeria.
Oh, the Christians in Nigeria. That's what it was. What do you think about like if Biden or Obama were to paint themselves as Jesus? What are your thoughts about Trump painting himself as Jesus?
Himself as Jesus. Anybody that's even halfway familiar with Scripture understands that Jesus wore a blue robe when he gave his sermon at the Mount, right? Not a red robe. And
what did you think he was?
I thought he was more like a healer, more like he's coming to help.
A doctor?
That's what I thought. That's what I saw. But you want to see whatever you want to see. That's the whole idea of art, is it's subjective to the use of the individual, and the individual reveals their bias through that, right? So anybody's not Trump, and you're a fucking idiot, okay?
And
Thank you for revealing yourself.
And if you're in a cult, you twist yourself into a pretzel. That's some cult ass shit.
All
right
I heard
there.
was something about a pretzel at a fair, and somehow
and a cult,
you're on a Ferris
cult
wheel.
that you happen to be in, and whatever Donald Trump does, you're gonna fucking abide by whatever, without question, without fail.
The problem is you don't love the country.
You're gonna drink.
I love the country, and all you do is hate Trump.
Let's let Mojo finish and kick it over to Gibbs, and then CTV if you still had some more to add in.
Potential energy. That was an awfully interesting sidetrack there.
Stored energy.
You live in a different reality, man. That's so fucking weird. These are all new actions. These are all new actions that Donald Trump is taking right now. This isn't potential energy. This isn't something that existed in the past.
Stored energy, not potential. There's a difference.
Hold on.
It's the exact same thing.
No, it's not the same thing.
In physics, it is.
No, it's fucking nuts.
Yes, it fucking is.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Not doing this.
So
I have a response when you're done, Mojo.
Oh, go ahead, Admiral Gibbs. I'm good.
Yeah. So here's my thing. All right, let's just talk about a few things y'all brought up. Whatever, maybe it was the War Powers Act that expanded. That was passed by legislation. But the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act was which is what Trump quoted. One of the things Trump quoted in using the excuse to blow up the boats. Guess who that was pushed through for? That was pushed by Chuck Schumer. Once again, that was actually a bipartisan one, right? So we have the examples of bipartisan support where we have righties and lefties coming together and they push these things. We have examples of non-bipartisan. I just looked up some right here in modern times, so we don't have to go back to the 1850s. We have Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed after a 60-day filibuster, so they did it through cloture. We have the Civil Rights Act of 1957. We have the Natural Gas Policy Act. There's all the Tax and Jobs Act. So that one was under Trump. We have all sorts of different acts. The American Rescue Plan was passed in 2021. We have all these examples of righties and lefties where we had filibuster-proof majorities pushed through that expanded the executive, and we have examples of where presidents are using the power, as CTV brought up earlier in his opening, of what using power that was already there. It was already established, and the judiciary, because we live in a constitutional republic, whenever something is pushed, defines the limit of that power. And every time that's happened, Vince Wilson here can say, "Oh, he drug his feet. Lord, it's so mean." But guess what? Eventually, it was done. It was done. It was followed, and no one disputes that. They don't even dispute that. And so they're sitting here giving us the game. Every time they cite one of these examples, I look it up, and it's one of these acts that was passed by Congress, and then it's quoted, and it goes to legal theory when it's got legal pushback against it in the judiciary. And guess what? Every single time, Trump either follows through and it's fine with the courts, it doesn't go through the courts, they stops, or it's debated and it's fine. It's still up for grabs. And every time it's come up against him, like I said, he may have drug his feet, but that's every politician ever when they've had something not go their way. They drag their feet and try to find another way. That's just what they do. And you can sit here, and once again, they can't give me a single example. This is why they don't want to talk about history. When I brought up examples, the litmus test, they're sitting here asking these guys what the political leanings are. I literally brought up the historical precedent of getting rid of all the people in office that was established for about 100 years plus. That's the historical precedent. Then we got up all this other stuff going on. They've not once been able to argue a substantive fact where the legislative didn't give them the power, the judiciary didn't define it, and these executive orders somehow gave them a permanent, powerful control over the executive that he's never had before. They can't give me a single example with historical basis and reality. It's not once. And you know why they can't do that? Because there isn't one. And it's a sad, sad thing that they're sitting here doing this branding, because that's all they have is propaganda and branding. They definitely read the good old fucking what's his name from Goebbels, who taught them how to lie, because they're sitting here doing
Stephen
Goebbels
Miller?
techniques right now. Now you're practicing Goebbels right now. Y'all are sitting here doing it. And listen, I think it's crazy that Vince brought up states' rights stuff earlier after I called them the party of the KKK, and we brought up the the fucking SBLC, whatever, Southern Poverty Law Center, fucking doing all this shit. And it's just crazy because then, like I see examples at higher levels. Nick Fuentes and a conspiracy saying the same. And it's like, guess what? Papa Gibbs is right again. And y'all have no answer for this because you don't have a substantive argument. Now, can you give me a substantive argument where the president has not used the power granted by the legislation and disobeyed, permanently disobeyed the judiciary? Because you can do that right now. Because if you can't do that, your whole case fails.
Can I ask one question? Yes.
Sure.
What the American Rescue Plan? What power did that give to the president?
The American Rescue Plan. What power did it give to the president? What power do you think it gave to the president? Did it give him none?
You're the one who brought it up as something giving power to the president. I'm waiting to see how.
Well, okay. What do you think the American Rescue Plan was?
It was the checks. It was the checks.
It was the checks, right? Okay. Who issued those checks? Was it Congress directly that issued them? Or did the executive have to expand and hire staff to cut the checks? Did they have to sit here and use the accounting of the executive? Like, you're sitting here going like that doesn't expand their power and give legal precedent in the future to give them more monetary power over the American populace. Like, this is a stupid argument. You even know it's a stupid argument. What power did it give them? It's the checks. That's a huge power to be able to cut checks directly. It's called legal precedent, son. Do you understand what legal precedent is?
It was only one check, son.
Yeah, and is that a legal precedent? Yes or no?
It's only one check. It's not.
Is it a legal precedent? Yes
As a
or no?
matter of fact, if they want to do it again, they have to pass.
It is. That's the answer.
Again.
Bro, it only takes one time to get a chick pregnant. It only takes one time. What?
It's just crazy to tell you it's not a legal precedent they can cite going forward.
Put out a condom, damn it.
Yeah, so I mean, again, Gibbs, you're saying give you an example of where, say, legislature. I mentioned it earlier. The Epstein Act is a prime example where they have said you need to release all of the files, and there was a process by which they were supposed to say, hey, I don't believe that this should be released for X, Y, and Z reason. And that has been contentious, as it already has been, because they're saying they're redacting names that were not supposed to be redacted. That's neither here nor there. The fact is that Trump and his own administration has said openly that they haven't released all the files. They released 98% of them, but they haven't released all of them, and they're not going to release all of them. That is a blatant, obvious where he is ignoring. I think that's actually
victims' rights.
What do you mean? What about victims' rights? Yes, the victims are excluded from that act. He can exclude them. He can put a bar over them and say, hey, this should not be released. But he has not done that. He's not released all of them.
Wait, but they have been released. There's a schedule to be released. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled that he's disobeyed this. They haven't done that. And this is why if I Google right now, you can just Google AI.
All of them and don't.
You can just Google AI this, right? This is like such an easy fact check. Has Trump disobeyed any Supreme Court rulings? And what you can say is you can see real fast, guess what it says? It says, oh, there has been some contention about how he has done it slowly, but they don't ever say he's disobeyed it. And even you have admitted every time it's eventually been done. And this is what I'm talking about. Whenever they sit here and go and I have these problems, they go and try fight it in the courts. And guess what? Eventually, if it's ruled against them, every single time it releases. This is not alarming. This is what every president does. Like, what is different about this presidency compared to others, other than the amount of executive orders? That's so crazy.
No, it's the amount of TDS.
Which has increased from every president.
Let me ask you something. If I take a candy bar from the store, but then I go back, say a day later, and return it, have I not committed theft because I returned it? Do you think that absolves me of the crime that I had committed?
I would say that is not an appropriate allegory to the.
I think it's appropriate. I think what I'm trying to say here is just because he eventually obeyed an order does not negate the fact that he initially defied said order. And it's not just one; it's multiple times in which he has defied that order or he's dragged his feet. We can talk about, like I said, Epstein. We could talk about the fact with Abrego Garcia. We could talk about the fact where the tariffs, he tried to drag his feet as much as he could after the Supreme Court ruled on it. For months.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, do we not know how slow this bureaucracy is? I mean, I don't understand you guys.
I hope we can agree.
On the one hand, you'll be like, oh, it takes time to get things done. That's why the pullout in Afghanistan happened the way. That's why. But then on the other hand, you're going to be like, oh, we need it done now. No. It's important to us. It's like, and then like, you know, it's like once you get into your 40s, right, you kind of start understanding that, you know, bureaucracy is going to move at the speed in which it moves, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about that until, like, you get a guy like Trump that comes in there, that there's just so many people that have such a big problem with him to begin with, and his name is on everybody's tongue, and then people start listening to what he's saying, and then he's like, hey, nobody's coming across the border unless they come through us. that's the government. And you're like, hey, that sounds like a great idea because, otherwise, why in the fuck am I giving these people money? Then the next thing, he's like, hey, this game that's rigged out here with Venezuela and Iran and China and all these assholes, we're going to fix that shit. You're seeing it getting fixed right now. And you're just Trump. Instead of, how does the United States need to see itself in the next 250 years, considering this is our 250th anniversary?
Do you know
like, are you not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing across the planet with the ice caps melting, right? And that the Northwest Passage is going to be opened up, and that we need to start really considering who's going to be transiting where and how global trade is going to be happening that way. Like, the only reason why there's any balance right now, effectively, it has been for the last 80 years, is because of the U.S. Navy, right? So I just wondered at some point where you guys are going to elevate the amount of things that you actually know about instead of staying stuck in your fields, right? And not actually maturing.
Mojo.
I once bought a pool cue, had it custom made from a guy in Vegas. Southwest was the name of the company. I waited 3 years to get it. I paid $1,300 for it. This was shortly after I got out of high school. But the hardwood that was used in that particular pool cue, the purple heart, the ebony wood that was used in that pool cue would cost so much more today. I don't know what the fuck half the shit you say has anything to do with the goddamn conversation.
Well, that's probably because I'm illustrating the limited knowledge that you have about how the interconnected web of these events play out in the rest of the stage.
Fuck.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as you start,
Do you know what Donald Trump's approval rating is today? Do you know? Because the American people don't fucking like him.
80% of voters, though, that voted for him, though. So
21% of the Republican Party wants him impeached right now. You know that, right?
Let me see what it says.
Is that a good one? Once again, what is the Democrats' approval rating for 12%? Like, what's your point? That has nothing to do with anything. You're the one to talk about you're talking about what's important to the prompt. What does their approval rating have to do with if he's consolidating power? Once again, you still haven't fucking answered any of my substantive historical arguments because you don't have an answer. And now you're going to talk about you're going to talk about what CTV saying not mattering to the prompt. You're going, I had a pool cue. I had some fermented cheese from under my nuts. Who gives a shit? Like, what are you talking about? Now you're talking about approval ratings. Suck my dick, bro. Like, you got me fucked up. I thought we were gonna have a substantive conversation. At least Vince is trying to give me acts. Like, you're over here going, oh yeah, is this what they do on TikTok? Hey, bro, hey, listen, the approval rating. That has nothing to do with the prompt either. At least I'm giving you acts and like historical precedent. You can't even give me the fact. You with a good thing to say, oh guys, that act that got passed, that one check, it establishes a legal precedent. It absolutely does establish a legal precedent. That's how law works. But no, we don't know how law works, so we got to talk about approval ratings. Kiss my ass. It fucking is ridiculous.
Okay, I'm gonna.
What act are we on? I want to make sure. Are we on Act 1, Act 2? Like, which act are we on? Because I think we're like at the Act 4 right now. Like, we've seen like the CTV and like Gibbs show, and
right,
we're like, hey, we're close.
Let me clarify. You asked the question, right? So we're past the murder act, right? Like, you literally got murdered in the last act, and what we're at is we're recovering the bodies, right? And we're trying to bring everybody back around. That's why Gibbs is
somewhere you got lost hilarious. In the damn woods,
right? So that's where we're at. You were just murdered.
Vince, why don't you bring us back around? Set us straight.
Yeah, I'll bring us back around. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about Trump. That's who we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about previous presidents per se, okay? And I don't mind talking about your particular argument. I've already said that, again, the issue at hand is when we have Trump going around Congress to bring in more power to the executive branch. That is what's the issue here. And we can talk about past legislation that was passed. And it's funny you brought up the Patriot Act because Donald Trump has shown support for an element of the Patriot Act, the FISA program. He's in support of that, wanting it extended. Surprise, surprise. And so, again, we can talk about this other president and how they did this. Yeah, there's probably other presidents that have accelerated that consolidation of power. But the debate is Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate. And I believe, based upon the examples that we have given, him ignoring, him going in and creating all these executive orders, him doing these national emergencies, him trying to get around the independent organizations and draw them in under the guise of the executive branch, him ignoring judicial orders, him ignoring the legislature, him drawing in power away from the states like election laws. There are numerous examples that I have provided specifically to Donald Trump that I have heard very little in the way of a rebuttal.
It's because you're not listening. But I mean, I can't do anything about that.
Northwest Passage
right?
have to do with any of this shit?
I mean, listen, once again, we can talk about all these.
I don't fucking know, bro. I mean, I can tell you about like how the Atlantic Ocean
No. I was
created
kidding.
at
I
the
was kidding.
flood
I'm sorry.
is literally
I'm sorry.
what created the fossil record, right?
Gibbs, did you have a response to that?
Yeah, I do have a response to that. It's once again, like I said, it's pretty clear what the Democrats are doing. Like he brings up states' rights again. That's crazy work. I thought the Republicans came down south and shot the states' rights out of everybody back in the 1860s. But hey, here we are arguing the same points again. We're finding out they were actually supporting the Klan and then the Nazis the whole time. The corruption I keep bringing up has come down. And now he brought up the Pfizer thing under the Patriot Act. You know what? I'll grant that. Guess what? He didn't come up with that. You know who came up with that? Back when my point was, that was Bush and Cheney with the theory of the unitary executive, and they brought this up. The reason why Vince Wilson here, apologize, that was his whole name. Why Vince Wilson here and Mojo don't want to talk about history, want to focus solely on Trump, is because the minute you expand this and actually look at what these presidents done, Trump's actually not done anything more or worse than what any of these presidents done. In fact, he's only used what's already been established by Congress, by the judiciary, and put its power put forth it to the fullest. And then when he's been checked, he's stopped. He's drug his feet, just like all these other presidents when they've been checked. He's done nothing that's any worse at any level than any of these presidents previous. In fact, if we want to talk about expansions of powers, we can look at Obama. Obama did all sorts of crazy stuff. Obama was the first person to use a drone on an American citizen. Now, did I hear them bitching about, oh, Lord, they're expanding it to where they can drone strike American civilians? No, I didn't hear him saying that, man. I'm sitting here now. I hate to do whataboutism. And the only reason I'm doing that now is because I think it's important to look at historical context. And the reason why Mojo doesn't want to go back further in history, and this is why I even just looked up in modern history and started from acts that were from 1950 onwards, it's pretty clear that even if we go further and further back in history, their case holds no water. And so it's just wild that he's going to sit here with a straight face and then use the examples that I gave and try to say that's not proof of what I'm saying. If Trump was doing something crazy, what he would be doing is rallying the Republican Congress like he's got right now to put forth legislation that would maybe make him, I'm going to be a third term for life, or, I'm going to do some other crazy shit. Instead, what he does is he trolls the lefties and he says stuff like, maybe we'll have some people look into this. And then they hyper focus on this shit like they always do because they can't do anything but bite the bullet. But instead, what we have is a Congress pushing forth real legislation that gets shit done, as opposed to, I don't know, the shit Biden pushed where we spent millions and millions on fucking 8 gas pumps that were electric gas pumps. And they want to talk about us expanding it and at a crazy rate. No, Trump's just playing the game that y'all set up, and you don't like it that he's doing it better than y'all do.
Well, we just won the debate because he said himself, if Trump were expanding power, he'd be pushing his legislature to push for him to serve a third term. Now, I remember Trump passing out hats to say, Trump 2028, you should go and look, Admiral Gibbs, at Andy Gibbs Biggs, or I think it's Gibbs, or whatever. God, I can't remember his name. He's putting forth an amendment so that Donald Trump can serve a third term. And we've seen where Trump, and I'm glad you brought that up because Trump has been pushing for himself. We've actually seen people like Steve Bannon pushing for Trump to serve a third term. There are people in Congress wanting that. Now, it's also funny to me that you also mentioned, you mentioned, him pushing Congress to give him more power. Well, that's what the SAVE Act is. The SAVE Act gives Trump more power from the states. You just defeated your own argument. Thank you for conceding the point.
You bit my bait right there. It was so easy. What was that? What's that Indian congressman's name that put forth the his impeachment stuff and nobody signed on? Same thing with this. How many co-signers does he have for this bill? Nobody. These are troll bills. We all know it. They put forth fucking troll bills all the time. Everybody does this. Both sides do it. In fact, I'll give you an example. Oregon right now is pushing forth a anti-beef bill, right? And what they're doing is they're trying to say, if you inseminate cattle, battle, then that's a sex crime. Obviously, that's outrageous. That amendment, part and portion of that's not going to get passed. And then what they do is after you get rid of that amendment, the other crazy shit you push doesn't seem so bad. So it's clear that's what they're doing. We saw Ilhan Omar try to fucking earmark money to go to something, a restaurant, and saying that was a hospice care, like, or some other fucking bullshit. Like, I don't really, I'm getting the hospice and the other thing confused right here. But I mean, we know, we can look that up. It was like a $1.something million. Like, I'm sitting here hearing this out of your mouth, and we can't take what you say with a straight face, because I can point to actual corruption that's being done, and you can point to one fucking congressman that pushed some bullshit that was dead on arrival as your fucking great whole load of proof. But when I point to bipartisan filibuster proof bills getting done that expand the executive, or I point to things that were done by Schumer with bipartisan support that expanded maritime drug enforcement agency, you don't have any answer for that, because once again, you still haven't gone through any of these, and because these actually expand the executive. And when you go, oh, Trump's doing this, Trump's just doing this with the power that's already been given to him. This is not alarming, because this is what every president does, and you haven't been able to prove that he's been able to do anything outside the norm, unlike somebody, Obama. Even if what Mojo said was right, be elected old presidents that started forever rule, even if that was true, and I'm not going to grant that, but even if that's why, and it was perfectly that, guess what? That still proves my point that Obama used a situation to expand his power at a more alarming rate than what Trump did. And so when you sit here and say these things, we can't take you with a straight face, because alarm, just like I put forth in the definition, means to be concerned. And at this point in my life, I'm not as old as CTV. I don't know how old my opponents are, but I'm 35. And guess what? At this point, I've seen way wilder shit, boys. And guess what? We didn't lose any more rights than we did with the Patriot Act, and we lost a shitload with the War Powers Act. And guess what? I'm just sitting here hearing all these other things, and these were way more alarming, but nobody said fucking shit. And in fact, we plotted it like they applauded Palpatine when he got elected. And it's crazy they're going to sit here and try to tell me this is how liberty dies today. Get the fuck out of here.
Mojo, you want to go?
Yeah, Obama didn't pass or use an executive order to get the ACA through. That was Congress. So, and we are talking about the executive branch here.
I rest my case. Thank you.
Yeah, it was Congress. So this has nothing to do with the topic either. I mean, it's about as interesting as the Northwest Passage at this point.
You can't tell how these
you are
connected.
What you are pushing right now, though, is for a fucking monarchy. We fought the Revolutionary War, so we didn't have a monarchy. We fought the Revolutionary War, so we didn't have an authoritarian government. Jesus, and now here you are saying that you want Donald Trump to run for a third term. You are actually fighting for and against our Constitution by fighting for an autocracy. You want to create an autocracy in this country. You want to get rid of the republic, get rid of the democracy that we have. And yeah, so I would say he's succeeding, and he has you to back him up in that succession.
Now, I would say that what's happening is that the veil, right, that was over everybody's eyes has been lifted, and we all understand now that during Trump's first term, that wasn't actually a presidential term. Trump was simply occupying the office while the entire bureaucracy fucking machine around him and the democratic fucking corruption of just bullshit was surrounding him and preventing him from being able to enact any of the type of meaningful things that he wanted to be able to do, right? I think this second term is a much more clear example of what he wanted to be able to accomplish then. And that is why I feel like that a third term, right, which is a term of years, right, not like, oh, you're going to be king forever. We're going to establish a monarchy. Oh my, it's like, I literally, nobody takes you serious when you say things like that. I don't, like, if you think, it's almost like you're volunteering to be the person that gets dunked on in the conservative video when you do that. It's like, I don't know why you do that unless you're just trying to be that guy. I mean, okay. I mean, it's not a great look, but I mean, you're more than welcome to wear that hat if you like. But yeah, shit. Go ahead, guys.
I mean, which president was the reason why we
for a dictatorship? You're arguing for a dictatorship right now. You're saying Donald Trump didn't get anything done.
Nobody heard that.
You're saying that Donald Trump didn't get you're saying that Donald Trump didn't get anything done in his first term because of the bureaucracy, because of the way the government's set up. And now he's doing what he wants to do, and he's using the executive branch and consolidating power and becoming a dictator. And that's exactly what you want. And you're telling me that he succeeded in doing this. You have just given the debate up.
You know, the two times
you're
in history we were
reading.
closest to, hold on. The two times we were closest to a dictatorship in history are under Bush, Cheney, right? I'll even say that they're Republican, and under fucking FDR. You know why we have the term limit thing? Not because, well, maybe Lincoln, sure, I don't know, but we're gonna just use modern people, right? Because we don't want to go back to the 1860s. But like, let's sit here and actually take this seriously. Like, why did they put FDR term limits? Not because they thought he was gonna be a dictator, even though he pushed all sorts of stuff and had power for so long that it was basically a dictatorship. Why did they did it? Because he died in office and his successor was a fucking moron. What's okay and not up to the task. And so that's why they put term limits on, not because, we're afraid of people running for office multiple times past 2 terms. Now, I'm not actually advocating for the 3rd term thing. Maybe CT is, if he is. I don't think he is. Maybe he is. I don't know. Don't really give a shit. It's not pertinent to the point. What is pertinent to the point is that once again, every time we examine history and y'all's fucking strategic reframing of it, or what we like to call revisionist history, it falls apart. Every time I look at this, you go, this is the worst one ever. And I can point to examples in history where we had more consolidation power. Has Trump consolidated power more than FDR during World War II? Absolutely fucking not. And for you to sit here and say that with a straight face is goddamn ludicrous. Like, we're sitting here talking about martial law. We're having drafts. We're having restrictions on rations. That is maybe the most restrictive we've ever had. And the only reason FDR gave up power is because he fucking died. And then you're going to sit here and go, but Trump has got to be a monarchist, a dictator. Are the monarchists in the room? Can you point him out? Where's old King George dick suckers in here? I ain't seen one of them ever. Because guess what? I'm a Texan. I don't fucking like big government. And if I was really thinking he was going to be a monarch for life, I'd be over here up in arms, sitting here, time to remember the Alamo, boys. And we going out there, we'd get fucking hit by an 18 warthog and die. But guess what? I'm going to sit here and hear what you're saying, but you're sitting here not saying anything based in fact. And every time we use historical examples, you have no answer. You just have fifis and feels and bad things. Like, it's nothing with actual anything of substance. Can you give me an example of why FDR didn't consolidate power and more so than Trump has right now? And if you can't, because I know you can't, because there's no way you can say that with a straight face, then you lose. It is that simple. Go ahead.
If someone can remind me, I just want to make sure we say this
it's just about Trump.
Maybe the 10th time. Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate. I don't know where the debate was. FDR consolidated more power than Donald Trump. I don't remember that being the topic of the debate. If you want to talk about FDR issuing executive orders,
okay,
yes.
then how about this? Why is it that you think that it's alarming?
Why do I think it's alarming?
People like you are asking for a dictator. That's why.
Nobody's asking for a dictator, right?
You are.
No. You don't get to fucking tell me what the fuck I'm saying. Right? This is
I
where we were
listened to
sitting
what
in
you were
this
saying.
room.
Everybody else
I would
did too.
literally recorrect your mouth. You hear me? So what you need to do, shut the fuck up. You do not get to tell me what I say. I already said I'm not asking for a fucking dictator. So don't fucking tell me I'm asking for a fucking dictator. You got that, kid?
Yes, son.
Actually, I do think Mojo's probably a little bit older than you, even though you.
I am probably older than both of you.
Well, good. Then we'd be more
your elders.
Than me and you want to say some shit like
Well,
that.
that's crazy. Well, that's crazy if he's older and he's lived through more history to sit here and say this with a straight face. Because once again, the reason why Vince Wilson here, and it's a good debate tactic, keeps going back to, well, is Trump doing that alarming rate? And this is why I defined alarming in the beginning. Like, the thing about alarming is it would be doing something outside the norm. Trump's not doing anything outside.
I've already given.
And now when I keep giving you historical examples over and over, you keep going, it's whataboutism. And this is why I keep giving Republican and Democrat examples throughout history. Because guess what? I pointed out that it's not a fucking alarming thing because he's not doing anything outside the norm. And you can't prove to me one thing where he's done something outside the historical norm or the legal precedent established by the Constitution, established by the legislation branch, or fucking with the barriers put up by the judiciary. You haven't been able to give an example where he's permanently done that a single time. No, you haven't.
The IEPA tariffs were ruled unconstitutional. There are other executive orders that are working their way through the courts right now. In fact, that one talking about him drawing in the rules for the FCC, the Federal Reserve, things of that nature. I would say it's pretty out of the norm to prosecute the Federal Reserve chairman. I'd say that's pretty out of the norm. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I haven't lived enough history, but I think that's pretty unheard of. Maybe even after going after some of the Federal Reserve governors and trying to prosecute them for mortgage fraud, the typical go-to that he's done. Or we could talk about him trying to prosecute some of the
if you want to talk about real
Congress
estate,
members who said to obey lawful orders or don't obey lawful orders.
Well, if you want to talk about real estate, how about the fact that Trump is, what was it that Gibbs, maybe you can help me out with this, getting it to where the corporations are not going to be having their monopolies on single family homes, and they're going to be able to be getting put back on the market to be bought. Tell me a little bit more about that.
That was one of them. I mean, we can look at the meat packers. This is what's crazy, though, about what he's doing is he's going to sit here and use this as an example, right? And then I'm going to sit here and go look at history. And, like, you know what also is unprecedented? The amount of cases that were brought against Trump and the stuff they used, like novel legal theory, to extend the statute of limitations on things that have already gone outside things, which they did in New York. And then they pushed this, and they tried to sue him using lawfare. That's never been done in history. And we want to talk about things that are out of the ordinary. Once again, history doesn't support what they're saying. Every single time we go through this play by play, I keep bringing history up. And this is why Vince keeps going, well, I want to talk about just Trump. Because anytime we expand this to look at what is the actual norm and whether we should be whether we should be worried or whether we should be alarmed by something that's happening outside the norm, we can't do it because, oh, well, I don't want to talk about FDR. I don't want to talk about Obama. I don't want to talk about Bush. I don't want to talk about Clinton because guess what? Anytime we actually use this, and I haven't used Biden for a specific reason because I know they're going to go, look, Gibbs did the thing. He said Biden. Oh, he's talking about Burisma and corruption. Like, I don't need to do this because I can point to every historical example that's happened, and you still don't have an answer for why this is outside the norm and why should anybody be concerned.
Let's do it. How did FDR consolidate power? You want to do this? Let's do it. We'll try to do it a little bit. I'll work with you. By the way, I want to be very clear. I had already said that I recognize that FDR had quite a bit of executive orders over Donald Trump. I'm not going to sit here and deny that fact either. But I'm curious to your extent of what you know about FDR, why you think he consolidated so much power and yeah, please.
Well, sure. I would argue that FDR thought that we were in a crisis when we were in the middle of World War II. And I don't know. He thought maybe we had to go and put forth some bills and stuff to get us out of the Great Depression. We had to win that. Like, this is just like the time period. So what I'm asking is, and arguably FDR's stuff like the TVA has hurt us more than, almost anything else in regards to electricity and whatnot. There's evidence to support that. There's evidence to contrary. My point, though, is that we can point to examples in history, and you are sitting here giving me the game when FDR expanded the power of the executive much more than Trump did. And even though, hey, it's at war.
Give me examples, Gibbs. Come on. Give me examples.
Sure. Okay. How about wartime rationing? How about the draft? How about, you're going to bring up the draft now? They actually did the draft. We didn't do the draft now. We can sit up, we're going to declare war. All these people, we did it illegal. That's the last time we declared war. Trump hasn't had that problem because guess what? He's done it as a military operation, which you don't have to get congressional approval for. Once again, all these things you keep bringing up, I could keep going. How about, I don't know, establish the TVA? How about any of the bills he did to establish the stuff that he did under the Great Depression? How about all the wartime powers that he fucking granted himself when he was over there? How about establishing martial law at some points in certain cities? How about interning the Japanese? Like, you sit here talking about the camps for the Mexicans. I am Mexican. Nobody's put me in a camp yet. But guess what? FDR put the Japanese in the camps. So you're sitting here going all these things, and I can point to worse examples, and you can't tell me they're not true. What
gotcha.
is more
So those are examples of FDR consolidating power, correct?
Sure.
Okay, great. So, I'm glad you mentioned the interning of the Japanese, and I'm glad that we now have Donald Trump interning some U.S. citizens and undocumented migrants. So there's another checkbox on top of what you've already mentioned before with the third term. We talk about the draft. It's funny because they just raised the draft age, did they not, Mojo? So they did that too. Check. You're providing every example that you're providing as to consolidating power under your FDR, Donald Trump has done as well as the other things. So you're only proving our point that it's an alarming rate. Thank you.
Yeah,
Gibbs.
wasn't the left the one advocating for women to be forced to sign up for selective service? Wasn't that them?
What does that have to do with Donald Trump?
It has everything to do with it because now you want to force half the population back into the military on a whim by the government, right? That would clearly be way more of a fucking power actual grab, right?
Donald,
right? I mean, Gibbs, would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Donald Trump's doing it electronically now.
Yeah,
He's automatically.
So I don't know what the fuck you guys on the left are talking about, because like you're over here and you guys literally want women to be forced into selective service, which is crazy. But then again, you guys don't even know what a fucking woman is. So, the confusion comes round.
You can't read the topic of a fucking debate.
A serious conversation with me, and then I'm just looking at you like, we can't even agree on biological reality, right? So how the fuck am I supposed to have a legislative conversation about how the United States should be enacting its power out on the world? There's no fight inside the realm that it just doesn't exist, right?
Go ahead,
so then
Mojo.
I'm forced to sit here.
I don't know. I kind of want to talk about unicorns now after that shit. Fuck. Man, I don't know what to say. You're all over the fucking place. You have nothing. You haven't looked at the topic once. You haven't addressed the topic once. You haven't addressed anything we've said once. You are useless in this debate. The only thing you've said is that you want some sort of a dictatorial ruler. That's the only thing you've told us. So you agreed with us. So it's the three of us against Gibbs. And Gibbs here is already given up to Vince about the shit that FDR did. So I guess we win by default.
See, let's talk about that. Actually, let's talk about that.
Gibbs, hold on, Gibbs. Relish this moment. Relish this moment right here. This is the moment where Mojo just gave us everything. Because what he just did is he tried to bait me again, which was obvious, right? And then, right, he says this other shit that he knows is not true. And we've already been over this. Like, we've been on repeat for the last 45 minutes. I don't know if anybody else has been paying attention, right? It's been the same points, right? So instead of falling back into the circle where Mojo and Vince, right here, just keep revealing themselves to be TDS-ridden idiots, right? How about we start asking them questions that are like, what would you do different? Like you're the king. What would you do? I guarantee you the show gets a little bit more interesting because TDS is just not, right?
Well, before we do that, CTV, I think we need to talk about what they just said. And this is why they just don't want to talk about history. But let's talk about that. By the way, when we interned the Japanese, were those citizens? They were citizens. And guess how many of them? Were there a larger number of citizens that have been detained than under Trump? There was. And so when we're sitting here going, oh, usually they're only detained as citizens here until we figure out if they are citizens, then we let them go. Unlike the Japanese who were held in internment camps for the entire time World War II was fucking happening, and then some of the time after. So,
and they lost their businesses. There was a big
they
thing.
lost their, all these things. And then, you know what? Actually, thank you for bringing that up, because guess what? I believe Reagan maybe gave reparations to these people. And you know what that would be? That would be another example of expansion of the executive, where they gave money to people for something that was done by a previous executive. Because guess what? You expand the executive, you have to hire accountants.
Got that one too.
It's fantastic, because you're going to sit here and every time we talk about scale, how many Americans were put in jail by Trump with these illegal immigration push? Well, it's less than the internment camps, right? And so when we're sitting here, what's alarming? Nobody was alarmed by that. Nobody's alarmed by that legal precedent. That legal precedent's already been set once again. So every time they talk about Trump is alarming, and I point to something in history and just go, hey, you know why I keep bringing up history, which is inconvenient to them? They only want to focus on Trump, is because I point to an example where someone in history did something that established the executive having more power than they do now, or they did. And then now Trump is just using the power that's already been established by legal precedent from previous presidents, previous Congress, previous judiciary rulings. And they can't disprove that, because Trump is sitting here going, I'm pushing executive orders and not very much actual legislation has been passed. And when y'all go, oh, it's an alarming rate, your whole argument is, oh, it sounds scary.
Hey, Mojo,
just a heads up, I apologize, Vince. About 8 more minutes left. So if you want to really nail in any final pieces, now would be the time, and then we'll move to closing statements. Back to you, Vince.
Yeah, it's funny he mentions the reparations, because there's also reparations that Donald Trump has paid out to January 6th defendants by pardoning them and also trying to get their convictions completely erased, meaning they would not have to pay any fines. So reparations for J6 defendants. I mean, you just keep providing example of consolidation of power.
That's
and how it's expanding. It's accurate. I'm looking at it right here. CTV,
reparations. You're trying to use the definition. That's not actually accurate. Reparations. That's not it, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgiving fines.
Reparation.
Go ahead and finish your thought, Vince.
Oh no, I was done. I'm done.
Okay.
Well, hold on. So let's just say at face value that was true, CTV, what he just said, right? Let's just say at face value that's true. But wouldn't that be that, once again, it's established by previous legal precedent that he's able to do that? Even if we took everything he just said, which is not true, it's a reframing of what actually has happened. But even if it was true at face value, that's still exactly what Reagan did to appease the Japanese after World War II. So like you're sitting here talking about things that once again have already been done by previous presidents, and so is thus not alarming because it's the status quo, and the status quo is not alarming by definition of it being the status quo. You do understand what the status quo is, correct?
Yeah, I do know what the status quo is. And it's funny to me because you mentioned this. You said that Reagan giving reparations was expanding, not necessarily a consolidation. Let's be very clear about that, of what is taking place. And that's something else I think that has gotten mixed up in this entire conversation is the idea between expanding and consolidation. They're not necessarily the same thing. And so when you're talking about that with Reagan, it's funny to me because you just conceded that is expanding. So if Trump is keeping the status quo, he's continuing to expand or consolidate. I don't know how I would probably say it's expanding the executive branch. He's continuing that. He's not trying to shrink. And it's also, I just want to make this little side note. Let's just go on a journey, as Trump would say. It's rich to me that what used to be small government conservatives are now saying, give me more government, daddy. I want more government. I want big government. I don't want shrinking of the federal government, which I thought, by the way, I could be wrong in this, but I believe Donald Trump ran on. Just a little side journey I wanted to go down on that. But I have given numerous examples that have been unique, and every time I've given you an example, it's been unique. Gibbs, you have been, but FDR, but Reagan, but Bush. Every single time I've given you a unique circumstance. So I'm working within your framework. I'm walking with you. I'm saying, okay, you believe this is a consolidation or executive or expansion of the executive. Well, here it is happening under Trump. Oh, FDR with internment camps of Japanese. Here it is here. Oh, but your excuse is exactly as it has been with every single MAGA that I have debated, which is, well, it's different. It's not actually as big. It's a different. It's convenient. That's always the argument when there is no argument.
That's not the argument. That's not the argument.
That's not the argument, dude.
I've literally been saying he's been doing exactly what these other guys have done, right? Like I'm saying that it's not alarming. He's literally not done anything different. That's the whole argument that I'm making. If you're like not able to follow that line of logic, that he's and then you go, oh, but so and so did Trump did this, and I give you a historical example of a previous president doing the same thing. That's not but them. That's they did it. Trump is following their example. I've said every president expands the executive. I literally said that in my opening. Like you're sitting here saying exactly what I'm saying and going, oh, well, it's different. I'm using historical context and historical fact to show that what Trump is doing is not alarming. You're using, but it sounds scary when you don't look at it in the light of historical fact. You're sitting here going, we're going to revise history to apply these things to me. Well, you can't even tell me with a straight face more Americans have been locked up under the internment under Trump than they were under the internment camps. We can point to other examples under Obama. I can point to other people under Reagan, all these different things. And guess what? Each one of these examples you give, like I'm sitting here giving, is an example that's referring to, you said Trump did this, and I point to another time in history. So it's not any worse and it's not any more alarming. Do you understand that? I don't think you do.
Except that you're going on top of the other stuff that we talked about Trump doing too. So not only is he doing the things that you're saying he's doing, but he's also doing the things that we're saying he's doing. And on top of that, the internment camps, Donald Trump passed executive orders in 2025 to create large-scale government-run camps or tent cities for individuals experiencing homelessness. This approach emphasizes mandatory treatment and potential involuntary long-term institutionalization over housing first. I'm sorry, Donald Trump is recreating those internment camps right now for 800,000 homeless Americans.
Would you say that's going to decrease sexual assault on women or increase it if he gets rid of?
I have absolutely no idea.
I mean, because you don't actually care about American citizens. You actually want them to suffer more crimes. This is why you want the illegals to say keep sexually assaulting women. This is why you want people to die. We're finding out that the crime statistics weren't the right thing. Now that we're actually going back and going through these things, we're finding out Texas just put forth a study showing that illegal aliens cause all. Like you're sitting here saying these things, and listen, you're talking about people that are mentally ill and actually who need help. I thought the left was the one who wanted to provide all these health services for, people that were impoverished and under this bridges and shit. But now when Trump does it, Trump bad. But if Newsom had done it, it would have been Lord, how nice of Newsom. But it's just hypocrisy. They don't actually give a shit about the American citizens. They only care that Trump's going after their money.
It's interesting that those are the same things that were said about the Japanese. It's pretty sad.
What?
Everything you just said about the homeless. Everything you just said about the homeless people.
That is not what they said about the Japanese.
That is what they said. They're dangerous.
The Japanese might be spies.
Yeah.
In the middle of a war.
They're
in the middle of the biggest war in history.
Yeah, I understand. And they're mentally
ill. You don't
ill.
understand shit. That's entirely the problem. You have like...
That's a great argument there, Northwest Passage.
2-minute warning.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're seeing it play out again. Gibbs gets backed into a corner and goes, but. It's kind of me and Mojo debate on TikTok all the time, and it's the same stuff we hear. It's like anytime an argument's got brought up. Now, I'll give you this: you haven't brought up Biden. I'm actually quite shocked by that. So I'll give you. I'm glad that you haven't done the "but Biden" meme. Okay, but you've done everything else. You've done the "but Obama," "but Bush," "but Reagan." I mean, how many other presidents you got? And every time that we back you in a corner and say, "Hey, here's an example of where not only is he expanding it, he's doing the same thing you have already conceded to as being a consolidation or expanding of the executive branch." You say it's different.
Your use of language is literally all over the place, right? Because you're like it's expanding, it's consolidating. The power was already there, right? The power was already there. That's the whole point. The power was already there. So, and like I said earlier, if you're saying he was consolidating it by actually using it and focusing it in a direction, and you could sit here and debate whether or not you agree with the direction, that'd be one thing, right? But that's not what we're getting from you guys. What we're getting from you guys is a bunch of happy horseshit that is an attempt to just, illustrate the level of Trump derangement syndrome that you decided that you wanted to engage in tonight. It's more like a tax on patience than anything else. And Vince, I had hoped that with a name change, there was going to be an elevation in a level of knowledge. However, right, it seems like there's only been a devaluation, right? So we'll leave this devaluation with the name Vince, and maybe Doghouse will come back because that guy was just a little bit smarter.
Let's go ahead and we will move into closing statements. In the meantime, I will be dropping the link here in just a few minutes to the live chat. So if you do want to join for open panel Q&A, please feel free to keep an eye out for that link. Gibbs, I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you if you'd like to start us with your closing statement, please.
What we've seen here today, boys and girls, is what I call weaponized willful ignorance, and where they sit here and try to pretend that they don't know what I'm talking about, and they keep saying, I see it on TikTok. Well, maybe I should give TikTok more credit, because if they are actually bringing up things that I'm bringing up, which I doubt, because it doesn't seem like he actually understands what I'm bringing up and why I'm bringing up previous presidents on both sides. I'll try it one more time, because it seems like they just can't comprehend common sense. The reason why I've brought up Trump and compared him to presidents like FDR, like Reagan, like Bush, like all these others, Andrew Jackson. We could go all the way back to George Washington if we want. We could sit here and see how all these presidents have, when they've been in power, have expanded the executive branch, how they consolidated power, how they put their cronies in one way or the other. We can look at Ulysses S. Grant post-Civil War, when the Congress told him he couldn't have certain people in his cabinet. He appointed whoever they wanted, and then he appointed his people deputy, and he just met with them and had them run it in the kitchen cabinet. This is something that was actually done. We know this for a fact. It's not debatable. We can see all sorts of examples throughout history. The reason why Vince and Mojo keep going, but Gibbs just keeps bringing up history, is because what I'm trying to show is what the prompt is. The prompt is he bringing up, is he consolidating power at an alarming rate? Well, the only reason to decide what is alarming is to see what the status quo is and see what the norm is. And so what I have done throughout this debate, which is really simple, and if we want to go merit by merit and point by point, like in a scholastic style debate, they haven't been able to disprove any of what I've said. right? In fact, they've actually granted me most of my points. In fact, they've even said they granted my point. They said, oh, Gibbs got this. The only reason why they think that they won is because they just don't understand historical context. When I point to an example where, hey, a president did this, legislation did this, and judiciary did this, and it expanded the executive and they consolidated it, it's very clear that this is the norm. Every president in history is, you know what, and for the lack of a better term, I'm going to use a Fabian Liberty term, every president is more socialist than the last, right? Every president expands the executive. Every president makes the government bigger. Just by virtue of more people existing, every president is going to keep making the government bigger in different ways. And so what Trump has done is used historical precedent to sit here and keep his stuff going. And while he's trying to push legislation through, he's used executive orders, which is not any worse, and he even granted this, than FDR. And if FDR did this, then that's a norm, and it's not any more concerning in history because FDR is considered one of the greatest presidents in history. So now they're basically admitting that Trump did less executive orders than what FDR did. And what FDR did is more alarming than what Trump did. So therefore, this is a norm. And we can keep going through all the historical examples because every single president that doesn't get assassinated early or die from some random case does this. I mean, obviously, maybe Garfield didn't do it or something, or maybe William J. Harrison didn't fucking do it or whatever. But like, I'm sitting here talking, and all these other presidents have, and that is the norm. That is the status quo. The status quo is not alarming. And guess what? There's acts that have been expanded, that have expanded the executive and consolidated power there, like the Patriot Act, like the War Powers Act, like the Maritime Drug Enforcement Act, that have given them power, much more alarming than what Trump has done, which is use those acts in the way that they were intended. And when they fought them on this, the judiciary has sided with him, and when they haven't, he's obeyed. And if he's dragged his feet, that's just Congress and politics as usual. But eventually, it's always been done. And they can't give one example where he's completely disobeyed. Even with the Epstein Act, he's still released stuff, and they've scheduled for the rest of the stuff to be released. It's just a misdirect, and it's not actually more alarming. It's really sad. Get good, scrubs.
Thank you, Gibbs. Critically thinking veteran to you, sir.
I mean, Gibbs pretty much said what needed to be said about that. So what I'll say is, to anybody that's on the left listening, instead of allowing the propagandists that are in your ears to continue with the conversations that you're having, what I would encourage you to do is to start doing your own research. I would encourage you to find a rock with a good set of values to be able to live your life by that leads you to a more peaceful place. Because whenever you're able to find peace in your own life and you start organizing the things around you, you begin to gain a level of clarity about the events and actions of other people that you do not gain whenever you're completely locked into yourself or into an individual. For the people on the left right now, that individual is Trump. And it has been for, over a decade now. And at some point, you need to start thinking about the nation as a whole, and rather than continuing to focus on the one individual, because there's a lot of your fellow citizens out here that actually care about the direction of the country and the way that it's going. And if we really thought that, and this, again, is the gun-toting side of the aisle, right? If there was, real alarm, it would be a lot more evident. But right now, what most of us understand is that the global hegemony, that word.
Hegemony,
thank you. That is in place needed to be deconstructed because the cost of it was lives being lost through drug trades and weapons trades and just a religious fanatic, regime hell bent on, creating the apocalypse. So that's what my recommendations would be for people. And fun debate tonight. You guys need to be a lot more clear with your language instead of being purposefully misleading. If you did that, it'd be a lot easier to be able to engage in a more faith-based conversation rather than, what becomes obviously attempts to create a shit show. So.
Thank you, CTV. Vince, to you, sir.
Yeah, I got to do something real quick. Let me just get that Cheeto dust right there off of your lips. Okay, now that I got that done. Sorry, I saw it was crusting a little bit. It was kind of weird. Oh, and you might need this because you were kind of like thirsty for Trump. Anyways, it's funny to me because Gibbs himself seems to pretty much admit that Trump is consolidating power. He just doesn't believe it's at an alarming rate. Me and Mojo have numerous times provided examples where Trump is going outside of the norms. It's funny to me because Gibbs said that they have laid out a schedule for Epstein. They haven't done that. In fact, they've said, nope, books closed. We're not doing it. Oh, and any kind of committee hearings with Pam Bondi, that's not going to happen. I don't need to continue to repeat what I have said time and time again. We went through FDR. I engaged with Gibbs on that talking point. And then when I said, well, hey, this sounds like something Trump did. Well, what about Reagan? Oh, okay. What about Reagan? Oh, well, he's doing this. Oh, okay. Well, here's an example of Donald Trump, giving kind of reparations. Well, okay. Well, what about this? Okay. Well, and it's always, this is the game that MAGA plays, is that they kind of move that goalpost. And again, they're like, well, Trump's not doing it in a bad way. Anyways, look, we've laid it out. I'll just kind of repeat it real quick again. We've seen where Donald Trump has consolidated power to the executive branch through a few different mechanisms. We've seen it do it through the particular pushing of trying to get the SAVE Act passed. We've seen it where he's actually tried to put in executive orders for voting, taking that away from states. And then we've also seen where he has gone against states' wishes by sending in the National Guard, the military, et cetera, et cetera. We've also seen where he's ignored judicial rulings. Just because you eventually follow them does not mean that you did not initially defy them. We've also seen where Donald Trump has put in a very large number of executive orders and alarmingly national emergencies. And I will repeat again, just so that everybody in the back can hear it. Donald Trump knows, and he's even said it, that if it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress. And he has repeated this time and time and time again. Everything he's done has been to subvert the will of Congress. And again, look no further than the Epstein Act. That's where I'll close the book.
Thank you, Vince. And Mojo, final thoughts with you, please.
Schedule F. You guys have no idea what it was. You never heard of it. It's one of the first acts that he put, one of the first executive orders he put in place. You guys probably should do a little research on it because this is restructuring the executive branch. Other than that, I would say, Gibbs, thank you for admitting that we won in your very first statement. That was awesome. And I'd like to see the rest of my time so that CTV can tell us about the beaches of Cheyenne.
Guys are killing me. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. What I'm going to do is I'm officially dropping the StreamYard link into the live chat right now. If you would like to join the open panel, we've got a Q&A portion. And of course, we're going to go into full open floor after that on gauntlet mode. In the meantime, I'm going to look through the super chats. We're going to read them out loud. Gentlemen, if you do have a quick response to any of them, you are more than welcome to jump in and do so. Spin City dropping not only one $20 credit, but two $20 credits. He plans on doing some bootine later tonight. Shout out to you. Tom Carpenter coming in with the Big 10 says, let's consolidate those donos at an alarming rate. Shout out to the chat. Give yourselves all the big W in the chat this evening. If you're a member, you have your own personal big chat W you can use. Otherwise, tomatoes, W's all over the place. Thank you so kindly. Fourth Wiseman coming in with the big 50 says, quite obvious that Vince Wilson doesn't comprehend that when a stone is dropped in a pond, that it creates ripples in all directions. More importantly, is where is the nearest shoreline that the ripples hit highest yet subside the soonest? Did anyone have a response? I know Vince just walked away. Mojo just walked away. Any thoughts to add into that?
That sounds like that gentleman has a good idea and a good understanding of how tsunamis wash clean the land, and when the waters recede, they leave their sediments, burying the life within.
Gibbs, you're muted.
I mean, I think this just it like proves my point. Like, I think they actually kind of self-own themselves talking about this happens on TikTok. What's crazy is like when you sit here and you don't understand historical context and how it affects the present. And like you go, oh, this is why Gibbs didn't want to bring up all these people. He just says, but what about these people? No. Listen, guys, the reason why whataboutism is their favorite go-to argument is when you actually look at historical context and what these leaders have done, you see a status quo is established, right? And this is kind of the same thing here. A status quo has been established. Each president expands the power of the executive. He's not done anything more alarming, really, because in fact, I could point to numerous examples of where presidents have done more alarming things. And even when they go, oh, he had turned people, etc., I go to FDR. I can point to he's sitting here giving a loyalty test. I don't think there's even a debate about, the presidents used to come in and just fire everybody. These are established precedents that have happened since almost the founding. And then when I sit here and give these examples, they go, well, Gibbs is granting it. Well, the whole prompt is alarming. Well, alarming would be imply that something is happening that's outside the societal norm or the norm established by the Constitution and all these things. And that's not happened, and they can't prove it's not happened. And when I point to this happening over and over, they go, well, Gibbs is just using history. Oh, Lord, history doesn't support me, so we have to focus on Trump. And it's really weak sauce. And that's kind of sad. And I mean, do better. Do better, folks. Like, if that's going to be the argument, y'all can do better than that.
Fair enough. Vince, this one was directed at you if you wanted to respond to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, the idea is that Donald Trump has, and I've been repetitive with it, and I'll be a broken record with it, Donald Trump has gone outside of norms. Again, I mentioned where he tried to imprison the Federal Reserve chair that he appointed himself. Where he tried to get them in prison, where he went after Lisa Cook over the Fed governorship. And even as Jerome Powell is heading away into the governorship as away from chairperson, he's still trying to go after him. There are things every single day where he's breaking the norm. We don't have a president who was going and booming ships in the middle of the ocean. I can go on and on where they have broken norms and where it is not just a president that drops it in the Trump's just kind of on the ripple, if that's what he's trying to say. But yeah, I think I've kind of laid that out. I don't want to be a broken record.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you so kindly. Fourth Wiseman with the Big Ten says, for you Americans, here is an offshore perspective of what's primarily occurring under the Trump administration. He's signing orders that are for populist receival benefits. Any thoughts from anyone?
Yeah, he's absolutely a populist. I mean, just like Bernie was a populist. Bernie was the left's answer to this, the status quo being changed at the a north-south level instead of the left-right. Trump is that's why Trump got a bunch of the Bernie bros in his voting. Right? He's changing things up. He's getting rid of the status quo. He's a businessman coming in. He's an outsider. He's bringing in outsiders to clean out the swamp. That's kind of something he's ran on. It's very clear that he's absolutely doing this. He's pushing forth popular policy and real change, and gutting this corrupt system. And we could talk about all these things that are unprecedented. I think suing a former president like a fucking 1,000 times after he's out of office to keep him from being able to run again, that's unprecedented. The amount of lawfare that's been done against Trump is unprecedented. It's just wild. Like, that they can sit here this with a straight face, and when they're it's literally like the Bible. When Jesus says you should take the plank out of your own eye before trying to pick the speck out of somebody else, they're going to sit here with their hypocrisy and say, Trump's doing all this when they've done even worse shit the whole time. And then they go, don't look behind the curtain. We just want to talk about Trump. We're going to hide behind the prompt. And then we don't want to use historical context to establish a norm. It's very clear what's happened this entire debate. And it's kind of sad that we can't even engage with it in good faith. This is the Dems now. They have no real substantive arguments. And so they just have to sit here and put forth prompts that they think will help, they can hide behind to push forth some sort of agenda. And they really took a huge L tonight. But I'm glad they assumed the win. That's the first step in being a good salesman. And like I said, I'll grant the Dems, they're not dumb. They're very good at marketing. And this is what they're doing right now. They're trying to market to you some bullshit.
Can I answer you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's no way Donald Trump is a populist in any way, shape, or form. He's your standard bog neocon. He's a W. Bush. He's a Dick Cheney. He's starting forever wars. He's given us huge deficits. He's spending more money than any other president in history. He's destroying relationships with countries all over the world. He's destroying international affairs. He's standard bog neocon.
Fair enough. Thank you so kindly. Fourth Wiseman says, the next time the Democrats are elected into power, I guarantee America will get a huge dose of communism. Please don't say you're not pre-warned. I see what others seldom see. Choose carefully. And then he also follows up to say the communism you'll get if Democrats are voted back will mirror what is seen in China. Every move you make will be tracked, traced, and you get a social credit score system. This is known. To Vince and Mojo, what say you?
I'm a Marxist. Take it first.
Yeah, I'm a Marxist. You guys ever want to argue about communism? I'm over on TikTok all day, every day. Come on over and argue with me about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say that it's pretty communist for Donald Trump to look at potentially taking a 90% stake into a particular company like Spirit Airlines, or taking over Intel, or participating in the buyout of, TikTok. We could talk all day long about all the different communism
we know. You
that
could talk
used to
all
take
day
place.
long about Trump.
So we could talk about all the examples that Republicans would typically label as communism that Trump is literally doing right now. But that's a whole different debate.
Okay. Yeah. Tom Carpenter, of course, says Sarah has made it national television for the wins. Thank you for that, CTV. Chris Martin says 2 hillbillies and with douche flutes calling people stupid is crazy work. The insults are always the funnest, I think. Fourth Wiseman says Republicans will keep you as a republic 1% versus 99%. Democrats will push hard in line with data centers when they all come online together and welcome your commie USA or un-USA.
Well, I mean, I think that's this Fourth Wiseman's hitting the nail on the head. We just had Mojo admit that he's a Marxist right here. Like, listen, I don't know what's more fucking unconstitutional, what's more alarming, where they consolidate power than what the commies do. And he's sitting there openly admitting it. And then they want us to take it with a straight face that what Trump is doing is alarming. That's hilarious. Like, he literally just admitted that he wants a more centralized form of government. And then he's going to turn around while he's at the same time go, yeah, don't worry about that though. But Trump is consolidating power alarmingly. Like, come on, bro. Like, you can't be serious.
Tell me you don't know anything about communism without telling me you don't.
Bro, I have multiple degrees of this shit. I know plenty about communism.
Really? Because I have a political science
because you
degree
clearly
too.
know. Like,
we can have this debate anytime you'd like, sir.
Yeah, sure.
We can have this debate anytime you'd like, sir.
The fact that you think that having a political science degree is even anywhere near the same level lets me know ahead of time that you were nowhere near prepared. But I mean, keep thinking that.
What degree does
that was
Gibbs
the only
have?
degree I had. Wait,
my undergrad.
That's the only degree I have either.
That was my undergrad.
If Mojo and Gibbs want a 1v1 later, let me know. We can certainly set up a 1v1 on that one. Tom Carpenter with the Big Ten says, hey, careful on the hillbilly comment. Some of us actually can think. Some, not all. Did the guys on the right get their shifts at Dollar General and Waffle House covered for this debate?
Sure, I did.
Chicano says, fun fact, Texas fought Mexico in order to preserve slavery. I believe this shot was taken directly at you, Gibbs.
Yeah, that's fake news and like revisionist history once again. I guess the Apaches who were fighting with the Texans against the Mexicans, when Santa Anna came in here and killed all the slaves because he said he didn't want them here, like that was something that was pro-slavery, I get. Like, it's crazy, this revisionist history that the left always tries to do. I don't know if you know this, but Texas was a ranching state, not a cotton state, and all the cattle were raised in South Texas by the border. And then what they did is they took the cattle and they marched them, what now is a 9 to 12 hour drive, but it's like something like 800 miles across. Now, I don't know if you know this. There's a reason why Texas had about 1/6 of the population of slaves that other states did, and even less, actually, if you really dive into it, is because guess what happens when you put a slave on a horse in the middle of the wilderness and walk back? They disappear. It's pretty clear. Like, it's just brain dead to think this is actually what happens. Guess what? Texans are vaqueros. The Hispanics, I don't know, Juan Seguin Gonzalez, the guy that fought at the battle, like Juan Seguin who fought at the Battle of Gonzalez. Sorry, not Juan Seguin Gonzalez. Juan Seguin who fought there was Hispanic, didn't own any slaves. We see people from Tennessee that didn't own any slaves coming here and fighting at the Alamo. We see the Apaches. They might have had some slaves, but their slavery was very different. And they were fighting against, hey, guess what? They want the help from the Mexicans and the Texans to get the Comanche, who were actually enslaving people. So you're sitting here saying this shit, and you clearly don't know about history. And it's really sad that you're calling yourself Chicano. Go back to California with that bullshit, because we're not calling ourselves that shit here. We're proud Hispanic, Tejano, Texans, bro. Fuck that baby act bullshit and this fucking revisionist slavery history lie.
And with all that, you now understand why it is that everybody reacted to Jamie Foxx in Django the way they did on that horse.
Interesting. I liked that movie. Fourth Wiseman says, what you all don't know about the name TikTok as to infiltrate kingdom, to overthrow kingdom. Now you know. Ruh-roh, tiki-taki. Spin City says Trump is still y'all president. And of course, Miss Smell the Roses sending love this way. Tom Carpenter says anyone remotely familiar with the Bible knows that there is no hint of color or style of Jesus's clothes during the Sermon on the Mount. Man, making us hillbillies look bad. Damn it, Gibbs. Why you gotta be so colorful?
Well, that was me, actually.
Oh, was that you? Was that a shot at you?
Well, it could be, right? It's not written. However, right, it is explicitly shown in the Chosen series. So that would have to be my bad if it's not in the written word. And I'd be more than happy to take that as a lookup and see if there's any mention of that. But it just seemed like a pretty significant scene in the conversation between that. It had some type of historical context there. So
I want to be very clear. When you argued that picture, you were referencing a TV show.
What you were attempting to reference was something completely out of context. So I don't understand how you're even trying to have a thing with that.
Jesus gathered too much executive power to the executive branch, because Jesus was one of our presidents, guys,
Fair enough. Spin City says libtards can't handle the truth, and he's going to be coming in hot on the panel. We know that. We already knew that when this topic went up. CT says, just curious where Timu Golly Good Ginger got the tablecloth to make his suit from.
Your mama's bedroom after I got done fucking her.
Wow. Shots fired. Fourth Wiseman says, when you put an independently highly successful businessman in a position of national governance, you get economy ran as proper business. When you elect clowns, you get Sideshow Bob's circus. And then he follows up to say Trump's tactical moves to enhance power structure across states is to stabilize the economy. This tactic is very good, knowing when he leaves the system, when he leaves, will stay strong. Any commentary to that? All right.
I think it's going to take generations to get rid of Donald Trump, that stink out of the White House.
And thank God, because you guys have done a great job of stinking that fucking place up with cocaine last time I checked.
Oh my God.
Do we want to talk about Don Jr.?
Hold on, that sounds kind of based. Shit.
Fair enough. Fourth Wiseman says, add on to the last post, this is not about Dems or reps. This is about a working system, not the divided debacle of governance you've all become accustomed to. Complacency isn't your friend. Chicano says MAGA is just Scientology for hillbillies. Fair enough. I Killed Earl says, does Gibbs know that the prosecution of SPLC is in Project 2025, that the unprecedented executive expansion is a stated goal and function of the P 2025, and that they've completed over half of it? Gibbs?
That's real easy. And once again, this is the Dems and their fucking perfidious fucking propaganda. Once again, I don't know if you noticed what Trump's agenda was. It wasn't, Project 2025. It was Agenda 47. All the things in there that he said he was going to do, that's what he's pushed. Not Project 2025. That's been debunked. This is just something they're pushing once again. But you know what? Guess what? Maybe it wasn't Project 2025. Some of the shit in there's base. Some of it's fucking stupid as fuck. It's just like any giant bill. But let's just talk about that. Why would I give a shit about that whenever it was find out the Poverty Law Center that's over here that's supposed to be fighting because they're the civil rights group is funding the KKK and neo-Nazis and literally almost help plan the fucking Unite the Right rally. Then guess what? You know what? I hate to quote Alex Jones because I know I look like Timu Alex Jones, except with a better suit. But guess what he said in 2016? He said they were fucking paid agitators, but Lord, everybody bashed him. And guess what? Turns out he was right again. It's crazy work that every time y'all talk about this bullshit, y'all go Project 2025. Maybe just stop being corrupt fucking Ku Klux Klanners and fucking people that argue for states' rights and neo-Nazism. Really, National Socialism is the same as normal socialism, and the Ku Klux Klan never disappeared. They just rebranded, and you're seeing it now. We literally heard them argue for states' rights on this panel today. Crazy. And then they also talk about picking our crops. Crazy stuff. This is the actual Democratic Party that's elected today, and it's crazy that they're sitting here not hiding their evil racism anymore.
Are you saying you don't like the 10th Amendment? Did you just say you don't like the 10th Amendment?
Did those words come out of my mouth? Did you anybody hear me
said
say
arguing for states' rights.
Twilight Zone?
Wait, you said arguing for states' rights. That's the 10th Amendment, right?
Are you high? Did the Civil War happen? You should be, because if you're not, this is just that scary.
Really? Because I just heard you say that they're arguing for states' rights. States' rights are a good thing, right?
If they follow the Constitution to the letter, sure. Would you argue that they were
The 10th Amendment is in the Constitution, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what state-
And what is your point
state's
here?
right are you,
You do know there's a concept called federalism, Mr. I have my political science degree, right? There's a difference where like federalism, where the fucking federal government has more power over the states, and then when everything's left the Congress, that's in the purview, right? Like this is the thing. When they establish law, it applies to every state. Do you disagree with that? It's
that happen?
literally federalism. This is literally government 101. Right? Like, and you're sitting here arguing about shit that didn't, dude, like the Civil War happened. Are you denying that happened? What about the nullification crisis? Did that happen? We proved over and over that states' rights are subservient to the national government repeatedly. How about the Interstate Commerce Act? Is that a thing? Like, bro, like, come on. If you're going to talk about, I have my degree in policy, at least act like you've read a political science 201 or 202 or 209 book, because goddamn, this is the fucking basics.
The 10th Amendment is as well as the 14th, the one that actually expanded it to the states.
Okay.
Oh, and okay.
It's up to you if you wanted to.
Just leave it alone, right?
All right. Fourth Wiseman says, when you see holes in a system and know it still won't function correctly, even with a patch, best practice is to remake that particular portion again anew and cease the continual repair damage control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Trump's work with the national pool right now. That's a great example of him going in and seeing the problem and going, yeah, there's a much better way to do this. A lot of it, I think that a lot of it is like a lot of politicians that get into power, they don't have any like practical knowledge of how things work. And because they don't have that, they end up just believing whatever bullshit that they're getting told, right? A lot of times. And we need to be a little bit, more discerning whenever it comes to who's getting through this process. That needs to be the eye opener for a lot of people. Instead of focusing on Trump, how about we get the left to start focusing like on the system itself and what laws that we need to pass so that, say, this particular chair of government doesn't get past a certain point, right? Because the more time you spend wasting, just talking about Trump, you don't get towards any of your goals. And you just had the last 4 years before this where you fucked everything up, right? To, enact some of the things that you're talking about. But you literally auto-pin Sleepy Joe, right, into nothing. Say, I got nothing for you guys. You guys are just useless.
Okay. Chicano says that purple vaping Harkonnen is not Mexican. Damn it, Gibbs. You
Yeah, chupa mi verga puto. I like what? How about that? You got that one? I think you understood that one.
Fourth Wiseman says research for y'all. Who sent all the warships to Hawaii prior to Japanese invasion? Also, where were all those ships prior to being sent to Hawaii? The worm can is big here. Anyone know?
I don't know if he's referring to like a conspiracy theory or something. I don't know. I think it's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, Fourth Wiseman also gifting out 10 Raging Tomato memberships. Congratulations to all of you lucky lottery winners in the chat. Thank you so much, Fourth. Okay. I've got Gibbs and Spin backstage. Effigy was back there. Something went wrong. Let's go ahead and open the pin. Did anybody want to leave before I open the panel up?
I'm good.
Everybody's hanging around? Okay, here we go. We'll see what happens. right. Odd, weird. Normally we would. I'm actually shocked. I know Effigy was back there. Where is everybody tonight? It's very strange. But in any event, let's go ahead. Remember, spin, Clay, you know the drill. Respectful, no slanders, crazy stuff for this first portion. But you obviously, since you're the only two up here right now, you have more time to ask your questions. If you want to poke at any one of the gentlemen, feel free to do so. I will switch Gibbs, put you up there. Go ahead, Clay, hit it off.
Cool. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, guys, for coming up, having this debate. I was finding trouble following a little bit on you guys on the left there. I thought Gibbs did a really good job of pushing back. Your prompt being consolidation, that's the part that I wasn't having trouble with. The part that I was having trouble with was why it's alarming. Why I think Gibbs did a really good job is because he is pointing out that the consolidation of power in the executive branch, as long as it's legal, it's not an issue. So Article 2 really kind of encapsulates where the president's powers are derived from. And sure, Congress gives, law to him so that he can execute that law. And the judicial branch would rule on that. We only have 3 branches, short of course, what the people decide. Maybe the state governments have a little bit of say in that. But I'm having trouble in understanding why it's alarming, because essentially that consolidation, perhaps to himself, or perhaps people who he trusts, people who are in his fold, if you will, loyal to him, that's normal. It's not unusual at all, which means that it's actually what should be done. It's actually not alarming. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's actually what I should expect from a president. I should expect that people under him are loyal to him, meaning that they're loyal to the Constitution. So that's where I'm having my trouble following as to why it's alarming. Now, I noticed that you did point out, and I'll concede that there are some things that perhaps he is going outside of the law, outside of the Constitution, but then when it gets ruled on by the judicial branch, he concedes that power where necessary. So maybe you could help me out to figure out why it's alarming.
Mojo, do you want to go first, or you want me to take it?
Sure. I would say that the 2 main powers of the presidential executive branch that we have in this country would be to faithfully execute the laws as passed by Congress and to protect the United States of America from foreign invaders. Other than that, there are really not a whole lot of other things they're supposed to do. Now, we have a lot of branches in that executive branch, or a lot of organizations within that executive
departments.
Branch. So, departments, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. That he does get to appoint secretaries for, but at no point in history has anybody gone down to the lowest level, down to GS10, to be able to fire people and put in loyalists. That's never happened. This is something that is brand new. It's not something that we should be doing, because these are professionals. They are people that were there on merit and are still there on merit, and yet they're being replaced by people that don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're only being hired because Donald Trump is their king. And that's a scary situation, and that's leading to some sort of authoritarian takeover.
Okay, well, that's false.
Okay, so for the GS10 or the lower levels, just for the normies like myself, when you say that when he gets down to a certain level, those administrative positions, I'm assuming that those are something that are basically already legislated as a hiring type position, where he doesn't actually get the appointment.
They're not appointed. They're hired. All of them are hired. The only people that he appoints are the secretaries.
Okay.
Secretaries, the secretaries pick the SESs, the SESs pick the SEs, the SEs pick the GS-13s, the GS-13s pick the GS-12s, and it's always worked that way. Except now Donald Trump wants to be able to reach down to the GS-10s and fire them at will.
Okay, very good. So in those cases, would you say that that's unlawful or unconstitutional?
I do think it's unconstitutional. It has gone through a number of court challenges, and he has rewritten it a few times. But the latest release on this particular executive order came out February 5th, which is already being challenged in court as well. But in the meantime, he's fired and gotten rid of and replaced like something like 150,000 federal employees already. So you're not going to be able to get those people back.
Yeah.
You're muted, Clay.
So sorry. So speaking
That's okay.
specifically of those that aren't appointed, that they're just simple hiring positions. When it comes to those, if it's unlawful and then it's brought up in court, essentially the courts, I mean, they already have precedent for this, I'm sure. Most of these things have already been decided. Then, those individuals will most likely be compensated, and any sanctions that are necessary will be made. Again, it's working the way it's supposed to. Now, yes, he may be overstepping, but that's not a consolidation, and that's not an expansion either. That's just somebody doing something that they thought was lawful, and criminals get convicted all the time for this, and mens rea comes into play, and then the court decides, well, he was kind of an idiot, it's literally an idiot before the court. So he needs some representation. They get him a good shitty lawyer called a public pretender. And then he usually gets off because they're like, yeah, he was a total idiot, or he gets sent off to like rehab or some nut farm. Right. So now I do agree that, if he's making some poor decisions, then, maybe he's an idiot. But that's an idiot. That's not somebody trying to consolidate power.
So I want to hit on So I want to hit on this for a second, because it sounds to me like what you're saying is that Trump, as long as he thinks it's lawful, he can put in an executive order, he can do what he wants. And hey, if the courts rule on it, it's no big deal. Wash it clean. We'll ignore the fact that he tried and attempted this. For example, there is suggestions right now that Donald Trump is going to run for a third term based upon the redefining of what it means to serve two terms. And this has been posed by Steve Bannon. This has been posed by other people. Andy Ogles is obviously trying. I said Andy Gibbs. It's Andy Ogles. But just because he goes in and goes, I think it's lawful, I'm going to try to go for it. That act in and of itself should be noted. It should be worthy of being noted and not ignored just because the Supreme Court says, hey, no, you're not allowed to do that. And that's where the alarming thing is the fact that we have a president that is hitting the guardrails as much as he possibly can. And the question becomes, at what point do those guardrails break? And now we have a full-on path towards authoritarianism or monarchy or whatever it be, where we have just one man in charge of the entire government. And not just, and I mean that in the sense of the judicial. I'm not trying to say that Trump is at that point yet. I want to be very clear, but I'm saying that him hitting those guardrails, that is the alarming rate. That is the alarm there of saying we're at the tipping point where this guardrail could break if we continue to hit it enough.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That might be something that I would say, look at, like, so I'm a big NASCAR fan. I'm definitely an Earnhardt fan. Most NASCAR fans are Earnhardt fans. And yeah, he played dirty. He played real dirty, but we were still fans of him. And there's a reason why. He would push the edge, and that's great. That's really great. Now, I don't agree that every edge needs to be pushed when it comes to actually harming people. I would say that that's a big no-no, but at the same time, there's consequences for these actions. So like I mentioned, sanctions, those employees who are done wrong, right? They're going to be compensated. The J6ers, that's actually refunding, not any kind of reparations, just so you guys know. So even both sides will receive their just compensation most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time. And that's the system that's set up in place. But as far as the consolidation part, if you're talking about that being alarming, then I would say, well, no, because that's not the consolidation of power. That's just him hitting the guardrails, like you said. And that is alarming, but that's not him expanding or consolidating.
Can I ask Clay a question?
Mm-hmm.
You're a NASCAR fan? I don't understand NASCAR. You spend so much time yelling at the TV, turn left, turn left.
Turn left.
How the fuck do any of you vote right?
right?
How do any of you vote right? I don't get it.
I'm not right. I'm not left. I'm very centrist.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a strict
Well,
constitution.
turn left. Turn left, dude.
No
turn
way.
Left.
No way. Not happening. The Constitution is the center. The law is the center. I like the law the way it is, except for maybe states' rights.
Fair enough.
Rights. All right. Thanks. I'll pass.
Thank you, Clay. Spin, I'd like to kick it over to you. If you had a question, I'm assuming it's going to go to Vince or Mojo.
Oh, of course. You lefty idiots. Who shut the government down? Was it Trump?
Government's still shut down right now. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. So who shut the government down? Was it Trump or your party of dumbassery?
I would say it's Congress in general.
Yeah.
Especially the Congress that refuses to be bipartisan.
So
here we go. All right.
So help me understand something. Congress shut the government down. Is that what you're trying to claim?
Who's the most in power right now in Congress? I want to be very clear. I thought Republicans had a hold on Congress, but maybe you can help me on that clarification.
Well,
that Republicans had a hold on it.
Well, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So then Republicans shut the government down by that logic. Then I assume they could have opened it up at any point, but they didn't.
Okay. I'll move on.
Well, hold on. Don't move on. Don't move on from that. No. The reason why it's shut down is because it's not a super majority, as we talked about with the filibuster proof, and the Republicans.
They could have removed the filibuster.
Yeah, why don't they remove? Well, hold on. Filibuster's based. First of all, second of all.
Okay, exactly. I want to move off this one, Gibbs.
Hold on. No, hold on. Second of all, the Democrats are doing everything in their power to hold the bill up, and that's what's happening, and that's why the Congress is being shut down. So don't do this dishonest bullshit where you go, oh, it's the Republicans. But the Republicans put forth a bill with a majority in both houses, and the Dems refuse to compromise on anything. Listen, I'll grant that the Dems are doing their jobs.
Oh, it's not the Dems that refuse to compromise.
Hold on. This one is just between Spin and the four up top. Everybody else is muted.
Yeah, but don't be sitting here trying to spin it to like see what I did there with the spin. Don't be trying to spin it to where the Dems are not second guilty of this. The Republicans with a majority in both houses have put forth a bill. It is the Dems' job now to sit here and acquiesce and like push that bill, or some of them will come through. There needs to be some compromise on both sides. We've forgotten how to compromise, but it is the Dems absolutely not giving in that has shut the government down, and that's why there's been a deal made. And I guess the umpteenth hour, it looks like to fund ICE, and it looks like it's going to be done here soon, from what I was reading over. But we'll see how this goes, because the Dems are always doing duplicitous tactics where they reframe things and try to act like it's not them shutting it down, and then go, oh, well, who's got power in Congress? Republicans, when they know they're using their powers that they have at their disposal to hold things up. But sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No. It's a power trip that the Dems use. The second little part of my question is MAGA a cult or a movement?
A cult.
And that was proven, by the way, when Donald Trump posted that picture of Jesus. What do you think about that Jesus picture, Spin?
I look at pictures of Jesus every day. Does that mean that
was easy.
I'm in a cult?
Oh no.
I am of the Catholic faith, like other people on this panel. Does that mean I'm in a cult?
If you think that I'm at the point now where, like, if you think that picture of Donald Trump, that was, like, to me, the moment where if you can't sit here and just objectively say, yeah, that was definitely Donald Trump trying to depict himself as Jesus, if you can't acknowledge that, yeah, I think you're in a cult. I think we're at that point now. I definitely think
I
that was
could
some golden
never
calf
say-
shit right there.
I would never and could never say that Make America Great Again is a cult. It is a movement.
Bowel movement.
Well, in your terminology, it would be a bowel movement because you can't handle the truth about anything. You can agree a man is a man and a woman is a woman. You cannot agree that it is a biological fact. You will never agree because that is your ideology and your propaganda, communist news network ideology. You people will never understand what real life is. So the third part of my question is, was Joe Biden a puppet?
No.
No, I think actually you can make the argument.
Really? Give me one good explanation why he wasn't a puppet.
The Infrastructure Act.
The Infrastructure Act. Oh, and what happened to the Infrastructure Act?
Donald Trump took credit for it.
Roads. We're building bridges. We're building roads. We're sending internet out into the rural areas. We're building hospitals. I don't know.
Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree that that was done in Trump's first term?
Nope.
Or started in Trump's first term?
Nope. Not in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, so Joe Biden from his mommy's basement says, "Oh, I'm going to send internet to 50 billion people," right?
Well,
50
in the New York Times,
really?
I want to be very clear.
It's semantics. So, shut up.
I want to be very clear too that Trump himself, he didn't like, he publicly would denounce the Infrastructure Act, but he does what he does best, and now he's trying to take credit for the Infrastructure Act on some of the key projects that were being built during 2021. He's now slapping his name on those projects, and this also, it kind of gets, it's I have to look for the executive order, but in one of the executive orders he
Look
passed,
for the executive order and read it.
Which
It
executive?
was Trump's executive order. Right.
I'm talking about. I wasn't finished. There was an executive order that he put
Answer
into place
question,
where he.
Libtard. Was it Trump's executive order?
What you're gonna have to give me more detail.
Answer
Was it
the
Trump's
question.
I'm asking for more detail. What are you referring to? You're talking about the Infrastructure Act?
Implemented it.
Wait. Hold on. Are we
Who implemented and signed the executive order? Who did it?
For the Infrastructure Act? That's a bill that was passed by Congress, not an executive order. What are you talking about?
Well, what are you talking about? I think you're confusing.
I wasn't finished with what I was
Okay,
saying.
go ahead,
That's why I'm
Libtard.
incredibly.
Keep going.
Okay. So
I'll poke more holes.
What
in it.
I was going to say is that Donald Trump even tried to take credit for the Chips and Science Act within, baked into one of the executive orders. I'll look for it if I can find it. But I want to be very clear. Congress passes a bill, the Infrastructure Act, and then Joe Biden gets it and he puts his signature on it. I didn't know executive orders created a piece of legislation. I don't know that's why I'm confused by your statement.
Well, I'm a little confused because you say the right takes claim to everything. Correct? I've heard you say some dissertation of that in the last 2.5, almost 3 hours.
I don't know where I made that statement or even implied that statement, but what I did say was that Trump took credit for the Infrastructure Act on some of the key projects that are being built because of that. That is what I did say.
Okay, so here's something that you should be able to take credit for. An unstable economy and Joe Biden's tyranny.
Start wrapping it up, Spin.
I mean, I consider take credit for the rising gas prices.
It was your party that made gas prices.
Okay.
Made the economy, made the housing market.
Right, let's do this.
To what it was.
Watch. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, Spin?
Sure.
I take I'm going to acknowledge that gas prices rose under Joe Biden. Would you then be able to recognize that gas prices and inflation has risen under Donald Trump? You said y'all aren't a cult. You going to take credit for that?
Absolutely, they did, and because of the conflict that we entered in, it was not because of him getting presidency. If you really want to know the factual truth, when Trump got in office, gas prices, food, housing went down.
Wrong. But anyways, I'm glad that you can sit here and you just proved to us.
Sarah, I will yield. I still want to argue with this moron some more about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. I want to hand it over to Effigy. I did mute you, Effigy. I muted everyone, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I never pressed that mute button. I have my own. Oh my God. The fucking waterfall of stupid I've had to listen to for the last few minutes. First of all, trying to blame Democrats at all for using a government shutdown after we've gone through a fucking decade of Republicans using government shutdowns is some of the most disingenuous shit I've ever heard. To not admit that Trump is consolidating power is just to not understand what the fucking word consolidate means. When you're trying to fire half the executive branch so that you have easier access to be able to tell people what to do, that's consolidating power. When you try to tell Congress that you're going to spend the money that's being pushed towards you from them in your own way and you're not going to follow the laws, that's consolidating power. When you try to exert control over federal elections, when the elections are held to the states by the fucking Constitution, consolidating power. I have no idea how you guys make these arguments. And to Gibbs and the other guy, trying to constantly make historical comparisons is just proving the fucking point. All you're doing is pointing to something and being like, look, isn't that worse? Yeah, this is just like that. Thank you for showing me that this is just like that. And we both agree that that was alarming. So now I'm justified in being alarmed.
Well, let me explain why you're confused, because it's clearly confused. So the prompt was, and I know we argue about what the prompt was quite a bit, was it's at an alarming rate. Those are the exact words in the prompt that I was given, consolidating power at an alarming rate. Now, what I did, Effigy, right, is what most people should do. You have to establish what the rate is and why it's alarming, whether or not it's alarming. And so when I go to historical examples, I didn't even say whether it was good or bad when FDR did these things. I didn't use the example say what Bush did was good or bad, or Obama. I didn't take any stance on any of those, whether or not they're good or bad. Now, I have taken stances previously, but for the sake of this debate, I didn't do that. All I did was go through and use historical context to measure what an alarming rate would be or what the status quo was. And now, when I go through these things, and these other presidents are doing this at that rate, and I've used this and established historical context 1 time, 10 times, 1,000 times, and established the rate is no more than any of these other previous presidents. In fact, it's less than some. Yes, I did. Okay, can you give me an example?
Yes, specific reference. You referenced FDR and the amount of executive orders that FDR did. Guess what? Trump's rate per year is higher than FDR. FDR had 4 terms. That's why he has the most executive orders. But Trump's rate per year is higher than his. In fact, Trump's rate for this year, his first year of his second term, is one of the highest rates of executive orders ever by a president.
So rates per year, that's something you're bringing up. Cool. And once again, I pointed out the executive orders can be flipped as soon as somebody else comes in power. And so executive orders aren't binding. Once again, I brought that up multiple times. I brought up how you brought up, they're firing half the office. Well, guess what? Previously, the political norm was they come in, they fire everybody that's not part of their team. That's a historical fact. You can't even debate that one. And secondly, one of the things I brought up with FDR, with Bush, with Obama is these acts by that they pushed through the legislation that expanded executive power and the executives use. You still don't have a fundamental argument for that because once again, I used executive.
Most of the Patriot Act has been sunsetted, and he's still doing things that were in the Patriot Act. Right?
So they don't use
the Patriot Act is literally
acts as historical legal precedent. They do. We know
the
that.
Congress literally voted to sunset
Hold on, you're talking over
Act.
each other. Let's at least wait until the other one finishes before we go. Go ahead, Gibbs.
Oh no, you can keep going. You finish out your thought.
Okay.
No, the relevant argument from the Patriot Act is still the FISA stuff, what Vince brought up a while ago. But most of the Patriot Act has been legislatively sunsetted, but they're still doing all of it. So would you think it's better when they have a law to do it or when they're doing it without the law to back it?
Are you telling me that these presidents in history haven't used acts that have been sunsetted, haven't used legal rulings?
No, I'm saying by using historical precedent, we can say, yes, look, it's alarming. It was alarming then, it's alarming now.
They are using historical precedent. And I pointed to different examples like Bush and Cheney using the theory of unitary executive and expanding. This is the norm for presidents. Trump has not done anything outside the norm. In fact, I would argue he's done less than FDR, Bush, Cheney had, actually. Like, you can argue these both things. And when you say these things, nobody's, yes, maybe those
you
were
may have had ground to stand on in foreign policy. But until Iran happened, you may have had ground to stand on in that claim in foreign policy until what just happened. Because we're now in another foreign war.
Oh, yeah, foreign war, just like when he bombed and it was 12 days long and then it was over. And now we're like, what? We're not even at the 60-day mark yet. Like, what is your point here? Like, it's not a moving goalpost. Like,
no,
Vincent's trying to, I'm using the literal executive. I'm literally pointing.
Like, you're right. It's not a goalpost because they stayed still for at least a little bit.
Of course. Hey, listen, it's called, what's that thing from Futurama? I'm technically right. That's the best kind of being right. Like, I'm pointing out the facts here and the historical context. And you're sitting here going, oh, Lordy, I don't like that. Well, listen, how do you measure what an alarming rate is if
you're
we don't
saying,
measure
look, it happened before, therefore we don't need to worry if it happens again. That's all you're saying.
That's
look, it happened before. No, it is what you're saying.
Alarming. Nope.
If you point out something in the past to say that this was alarming then, and you're like, oh, this was way worse then, I can go, yeah. And if it's happening now, that would mean it's alarming, right?
Much like Clay brought up earlier, right, a few little bit ago, is he's pushing up against the guardrails. That is a norm for every president, right? Every president expands. He's not doing anything more than any other president has done in history. He's using different techniques. He's using different tactics. Every president uses different techniques and tactics that they think will get done. If they can push it through Congress one way, they do that. If they use an executive order, they do another way. If they appoint judges, that's a different way. That's like, these are all things that every president
There's a difference
done.
between trying to expand executive authority and consolidating power. Right.
Oh, is there?
As a leader,
I didn't know that there were differences. But this is my point. We keep ignoring the alarming rate point of the fucking conversation, which was in the prompt. And when I go and point out historical,
do you not agree with that statement?
So that we know how to measure. No, I don't agree with that statement.
Do you not? Okay, so if a president tries to expand executive authority to give people health care, it's not different than whether or not they expand executive authority to put troops in your streets as policemen.
That was maybe worse. That was worse, probably. I would argue that's worse in some aspects. Yeah. And when I'm sitting here going through these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the expanding healthcare was worse than the troops thing. I agree. So it is worse. When we're sitting here going through these things and I'm pointing to historical context, I'm using historical context to establish alarming rate, and you're not even being good faith enough to admit that you have to use history to establish what the rate of change is or the rate of difference is. And how do you determine that? Well, you look at historical examples and you're just refusing to engage in that, and you use these things. When you do engage, you're going, I'm going to sit here and use whataboutism, except in this case it's fine, but when Gibbs does it, it's not fine. That's bad faith as hell, bro. Like, you have to use all these at all times.
You are whatabouting quite a lot tonight.
I'm not whatabouting. I'm establishing.
You literally are. You're saying, look at this over here. Look at this over here.
How do you explain what alarming rate is without looking at historical examples?
No, that's fine. And I just
okay. So that's not what about it. Establish what? When
you say this was already done here,
we're going to use all these different examples. We're going to use all these different examples. Then you use them to establish what an alarming rate is. You're still not giving me how you establish alarming rate without going through historical examples. And so until you can do that, then you really don't have a point to stand on.
That's not
at least you're being good faith.
This is how you're a carnival barker. So you're using historical precedent, number one, as to say, look, it already happened in the past, therefore we don't need to be alarmed. And now you're saying that we're saying not to use that historical precedent for a whole different fucking thing, which is determine the rate to be alarmed at. Like, two completely different fucking things.
They are not completely different things. You're just willfully ignoring my point here. I think Sarah's having some issues here.
Sorry. Let's put a pin in that one.
Yeah, and let's move on.
Yeah.
I can keep going on this for a while, but
we can hit it on full open floor. Bones, if you want to go ahead and chime in.
Yeah. So is this you said we're moving to the open floor then?
Not yet.
Okay,
as Varun, then Rinyald.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, I think everyone remembers Liberation Day, right? Trump's global tariffs right there. Yeah, if anyone remembers, he used the IEPA to do that illegally, by the way. And in Learning Resources Inc. v. Trump, he got shot down on that. So that's just one big glaring example of a misuse of his executive authority and his attempt to centralize it by expanding the use of the IEPA. And look where it got us. Absolutely fuck all, and it left us, shooting ourselves in the foot. Thoughts?
Same thing as what I just said. They're using their powers that have been granted to them previously with other things to expand things.
The IEPA does not grant those powers. They don't.
What? Say it again.
The IEPA does not grant those powers. Like
it doesn't grant those powers. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it got shut down.
Yeah, and then what happened after that? It got shot down. What happened?
Now companies are trying to sue the American government for all the tariff revenue.
So they're going through the checks and balances established by the Constitution. They're using the legislation and the judiciary to fight this. So they're doing exactly what works as intended.
After Trump violated
so they're doing what works as intended.
Yes,
I know that you want to change the Constitution to where we don't use the checks and balances established. But listen, when you go through legal recourse, I was asked directly by Mojo. I was directly asked by
Mojo. Hold on. We can't hear either of you right now. Gibbs, finish your thought, and then to Bones.
Yeah. I was directly asked by Mojo earlier, right? In certain cases when these things would happen, right? And I explained, hey, I'm okay with if AOC comes to power and she legislates beef. What I would do, I would hire lobbyists to fucking fight for me. I would lobby my congressman. I don't think I would go to the point to go to war, even though I got a lot of cattle. Maybe I'm gonna force them to fucking arrest me, and then we're gonna sue them that way. We're gonna go through the judiciary. I'm gonna go through the checks and balances, the legal recourse, and the system because that's what they do. And you know what? If AOC comes to power and does this, bar power to her because she has the power. If she gets in there to use her executive authority, try to expand it, just like all these other presidents, and then I, as an American rancher, or Texan rancher specifically, can use my own legal recourse to fight that. And this is what's done. You said here it got struck down. He tried to expand it. It got struck down. He obeyed it. So what's your point? He's literally doing things as intended, and you're still bitching. And every president expands their power, and it's just ludicrous that you're going to sit here with this hypocrisy and act like they don't.
Yeah, so what other president has tried to levy universal tariffs against the entire world using the IEPA?
So are you agreeing that that is not a new tactic? I would say that's a new tactic.
No, I'm asking you the question. Do you want to answer?
It's a new tactic.
It's just the universal tariffs, as far as I know, are pretty a new tactic to at least America. But I mean, we've had other countries do it previously in history. So tariffs are within the purview, as far as I know, of the executive with some regulations by Congress, and that's why when the judiciary stomped down what he did, he's found other ways to go about doing it, and now those are going to be legally challenged or they're not. So you're arguing these things, and once again, it's very clear that he's doing these within the bounds of law. And every time the judiciary pushes back, he finds a different way to do it and test the legal system. And you're arguing this, and I'm saying it's working as intended, and that's not alarming. And that's the status quo, and the status quo is not alarming. Now, if you want to change the status quo, then just say that, but don't sit here and act like the status quo is alarming, and don't act like we can't use historical examples to determine what an alarming rate would be.
So I think it's heard twice in here that Admiral Gibbs conceded that he was actually attempting to increase his power here, and he also contradicted himself earlier regarding Trump is trying to act within the laws. He very clearly wasn't. That's why it got struck down. And this is after months. No president has ever tried to do this thing where I'm going to use this law right here to enact global tariffs, where it was previously used to just target specific countries and save them. No one's ever done this.
Let me ask you a question. Has any president ever used the law to expand their power and then it be struck down by the judiciary?
This is not a response.
No. It is a response.
I agree that there are presidents that have expanded their power. What I'm arguing
and hold on. And then the judiciary struck it down because of one way they used it, right? Yes or no? Has that happened?
Doing it in a completely novel way.
Okay, so have any president in history ever done something in a novel way that was struck down by judiciary and then they went and tried to do it a different way? Has that ever happened?
To the degree which Trump has done, no.
No, not to the degree. Just yes or no. Has it happened? We can talk about it any degree.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they have done that. So all right, cool. Thank you.
Wait, do you think that presidents actually think that they have the authority to enact global tariffs?
I think presidents have the authority that they think they have, and then that's what the judiciary is to determine what the limits of their power is. That's literally why they're there.
Yeah, except when it explicitly says that it doesn't. When he doesn't have the power.
And then what happens when they don't have the power? What happens? Does someone fight it in law and the judiciary rules and establishes they don't have that power?
So he very clearly violated the law then. So he's not testing the laws. He's clearly just flagrantly violating them. There's also other instances with Perkins Coie case as well, where he just just threw away a certain lawyer's rights away. The First, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments. We can also talk about that too. That's another thing.
Start to wrap it up.
Yeah, honestly,
I mean,
Gibbs. If Gibbs is fine with the president like just violating laws, I mean, we've got that on record now, so that works.
I mean, there's a difference between what I'm saying and violating laws. I'm laying out a clear case that all of these presidents do this. Right? Thus, it's not. Listen, I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing. I'm objectively saying the system is working as intended, and I know that you're upset that the system is working as intended and want to kind of do some kind of revision. But like, listen, and I'll bite the bullet. I literally bought the bullet. Mojo said this. I'm saying, hey, if AOC gets in power, I would use the current system established by the Constitution to fight that in a variety of different ways. And that's just what y'all should do if you have a problem with it. But instead, y'all want to sit here and try to do a propaganda win when it's pretty clear that this is not out of the societal norm or out of the norm in history. And so therefore it's not an alarming rate and it falls flat on its face. But
does that mean
very clearly that wasn't but yeah.
Does that mean you're going to quit your streaming career after Trump gets out? Because you got nothing to complain about, right?
I mean, you know that I actually only came to politics. I mean, you might not know my history, but my money doesn't come from streaming, sure. But if I was, I'd be going back to like doing announcing for esports, and that's where I would get my money for streaming. And hey,
I didn't say where you got your money. This
is just a side thing. Oh, you asked about my streaming career, so now you get an answer. And so if I was going to quit it, I would just quit doing the politics and move over to a more lucrative part of streaming. But hey, get good scrub. You clearly don't have anything going on except the bitch about Trump, and that's why you're saying this. I actually have other things I do for 3, 4, 5 days a week on streaming, but good try though.
I will count the days until you leave politics then.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Because you got to count the days when you get those ass whippings till the GOAT leaves. I understand everybody wanted Michael Jordan gone too.
All right, let's hand it on over to Varun. Your question, please, sir.
Thank you, Sarah, for having me on your show. I have a question for for all of the 4 people above. I just wanted to know, like when it comes to politics, how come the Democrats and the Republicans can't see eye to eye on anything? And every time they project their candidates for president, each party does everything to pull the concerned candidate down in every way possible. And if they keep fighting like this every time for every issue, how long will democracy even last in the country?
Yeah, I feel like this is more. I mean, it's probably both of us, but while Gibbs is away, I'll feel free to jump in here. I think that based upon what we have seen just in this conversation here, there is a particular ideology on the right named MAGA that we should be trying to do everything we can to quell. Again, we have talked about the fact that Trump is consolidating power at an alarming rate. I still hold that stance, and I think that the left, the reason why we can't see eye to eye is because we shouldn't see eye to eye on that particular issue. We shouldn't sit there and say, "Oh yeah, you know what? Trump is great. Yeah, we need to find a way to work with Trump." No, that ideology needs to be gone. It needs to be quelled. We need Democrats in office who are willing to fight against that. This is actually, by the way, one of the reasons why Democratic approval ratings are so low, because we didn't feel that our party was doing enough to go against what the MAGA movement is doing. We wanted to see more fight. This is why the gerrymandering thing was so exciting to Democrats. We're like, yes, finally, they're playing by the other team's rules, because for so long, Democrats have just said, no, we'll take the higher route. We'll take the higher route. And now finally they're saying, you know what? The right isn't even going to hold themselves to their own standards. We're going to start playing by our own rules. And so I know it doesn't really necessarily maybe answer why we can't see eye to eye, but the best way I can put it is because we shouldn't see eye to eye with people like that in the MAGA movement who are trying to give authoritarianism a pathway. I don't believe we should.
Mojo, would you like to respond before I go?
Yeah, I'm going to say I just like to argue, and democracy is the best way to do that without getting arrested. So I'll go ahead and fight for a democracy.
Fair enough. Gibbs?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, honestly, I feel like Vince and I, we could probably come to an agreement on some issues. And this is the problem I'm having with this debates. And, Rinyald's here, so we're actually going to get some tactics here in a moment. But, what Rinyald did last week is the same thing they're doing this week. They put forth a debate prompt, and then they don't want to actually talk about the certain issue. They want to sit here and try to hide behind a prompt. It's called punching a plastic bag. And so, interestingly, though, they actually failed when they issued forth this prompt. And I saw it when I picked it up. And this is the interesting part about it, is the rate part of this, is the alarming rate. And this is why I keep going back to historical examples, where I can point to different examples of historical things going down over the course of history in many different levels, right? And so when I see these and I point to them and I go, this happened, this happened, this happened. Now, yeah, I agree. Maybe that all that is alarming at something, but it is the societal norm. It is the historical norm. It's not any more alarming than any other time. And thus you fail as a prompt. And you really don't uphold it. You don't even establish what the rate of alarm should be. You didn't establish what is alarming. You said, oh, this is alarming, but then you can't give me historical examples where that's unusual. And so you really fail as a prompt. What y'all should do is take some notes from how Rinyald set up the prompt last week, where he was able to pontificate from behind the prompt and never actually talk about the issue. Because what y'all did was left me an opening to bash y'all over the head. Now, if we actually wanted real changes, or what Varun said, where we had compromise stuff, I'm sure I actually am up here because I want compromise on certain things. I'm a socially kind of left on certain issues. I don't give a shit about cocaine use. I don't give a shit about weed use. I don't give a shit about if you're gay. I don't give a fuck about none of that. I care about my tax dollars being fucked. I care about my fucking foreign policy be going down a certain way. I care about other policies where we restricted things. These are issues. I care about my beef. That's been getting fucked for the past 75 fucking years. And now I'm over here finally seeing some changes, and y'all are going, hey, fuck myself. And I'm willing to sit here. I'm not a MAGA diehard. If he ends up being an actual pedo, throw his ass in the wood chipper. I don't give a shit. Are there things I don't like that Trump did? I don't like the Argentina beef deal. I get criticized him on all sorts of stuff. But we're going to sit here and be an actual good faith debate, and you want to sit here and talk about what's historical, what's actually an alarming rate. Well, we have to look at historical context. And when I do this and I repeat this over and over and over, hey, things are working as intended. Thus, it's not that alarming.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gibbs. Asferon, did that complete your question?
Yeah. Just one last sentence I'll add, Sarah. Because in Britain, the conservatives and the liberals, they don't keep pulling each other down like this. So they like, if the liberals enact a policy, the conservatives try to support them and see if it works. They work in a more unified manner, and they experiment a lot to see if it works or not. So if Americans could do the same thing, it would be nice, actually. That's what I just wanted to add. So that's it. Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely.
I know you love the UK. Real quick, I think there's one thing that Mojo, Vince, and I can all agree on. When you were a former world empire, world superpower, nobody wants to be the UK. Y'all would rank 51st in all 50 states. You'd rank lower than Mississippi in economic prowess. I don't think anybody here wants to become the UK. So no offense, fuck that shit. And there's a reason why we whooped their ass in 1776 and Andrew Jackson whooped their ass again in 1814. So hey, check that out. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
But you can learn something from everyone, right? Like even if they're your enemies, they have something to teach you. Otherwise, like you can't just have that thing that we are on the top all the time. Everything that we've got, it's actually by observing and learning from others. We can't be
right.
like
right. You learn what not to do by watching the UK.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Asferon. All right, Rinyald, to you, final one, and then after that, we will move into open floor. Go ahead, Rinyald.
Boy, I've got a lot. I do want to say, Gibbs, I appreciate the glaze. That was greatly appreciated. I do want to say, though, it feels kind of weird to accuse other people of hiding behind the prompt when your main argument here seemed to be like, what is technically an alarming rate at which power is consolidated? I felt like that was kind of a weird thing to point out.
I just embraced the point, Rinyald. I embraced it.
True. But like, okay. I feel like this argument that Donald Trump is not consolidating power at an alarming rate, or it seems like kind of the stand-in topic is at a unique rate. I think it's kind of laughable. Donald Trump is like the biggest unitary executive proponent that I've seen in modern history. There's a reason why his, vice presidential appointment said we need to fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every single civil servant in the administrative state. And when the courts try to stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and said, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now enforce it. Right? So the Trump administration has repeatedly undermined the authority of the courts, has repeatedly tried to expand presidential power, firing all of the civil servants to, centralize all of that power into the executive, because that's what unitary executives do. The idea that, I hate to be, sound like a broken record, but like the idea that the president that argued that the fate of the election basically lays in the hands of the vice president, the idea that He says that the vice president has the ability to determine which electors are certified, and this isn't the person that's consolidating power, or at least attempting to consolidate power at an alarming or unique rate. Unfortunately, I do think there is a death blow to this topic, though, because I could even grant that Donald Trump is not consolidating power at an alarming rate because he's just really fucking bad at doing it. So every time he tries to consolidate power, he gets struck down, and he doesn't actually have the balls to ignore the court like he wants to. So I think that may be the only argument that you can give, but the idea that Donald Trump wants to consolidate power at an alarming rate or in a unique rate is almost non-contestable.
Well, hey, you made the argument that somebody else already made about the he was just bad at it. I mean, listen, if it's just bad at it, then I win by default on that one. And if he's good at it, then he's doing it the same thing these others are doing. I just like
Sounds
either
like
way.
hiding behind the prompt, Gibbs.
I'm dying. Hey, listen, I just embraced it. This is why I kind of brought up what you did last week versus what they did this week, and it's all about wording. And I absolutely hate doing the ticky-tack Destiny Andrew Wilson style where we're going to argue over fucking one word or however. But if we're going to set up a prompt and that's like disadvantage to one side and it's super advantage to one other, then I'm going to use the prompt to my own advantage. That's just called good debate. And listen, and this is really what I keep coming back to. How do you establish what a rate is? And if you can't use historical context, then, I mean, there's no way to establish what an alarming rate is because we're only using the present historical context. And so, I mean, it's either he's really bad at it and he didn't do it, or he's doing exactly what these others have done. And then either way, nah, he's not that bad. It's not that alarming.
So I want to mention this real quick. The rate at which I was describing was using in context the 255 executive orders and 9 national emergencies, because I do think those are worthy of being noted on. That is why I brought those ones in particular up. There are other examples in which he is consolidating power that we haven't seen a new norm. I think it may have been Bones or somebody else down there who mentioned exactly like the universal tariffs that had never been implemented by another president. It is not necessarily a rate that by which you can measure, but it is something that is unique to this president. And I do think that is where the alarming rate comes into play. So I did present some evidence to which you could draw a mathematical rate, if you will. But yeah, I think it's undeniable that there is an alarming rate to which we're seeing this.
Well, I think the character of this prompt would require us to assess, like, you know, if the Trump administration argument against this idea that they're consolidating power at an alarming rate is that, yeah, we want to, but we're really bad at it, liberal. Okay. Like, I don't see that as like a meaningful attack of the prompt. Right. So the question I think that is more, you know, pertinent is like, well, do you think Donald Trump wants to? Do you think that Donald Trump's actions that he's tried to take would feasibly, you know, consolidate more executive power? I feel like the answer is unequivocally yes, right? Like I think the closest comparison that you could make to Donald Trump's actions throughout this year is like maybe Andrew Jackson. But if we're reaching into the deep 1800s to pull historical comparisons to Donald Trump's, you know, like historical lawlessness, I feel like that kind of desperation in terms of how to justify this presidency almost proves the point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Gibbs, did you have any? I can't tell if you look like you want to say something or not.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure we're gonna get into it more. I've talked a lot. I mean, I could keep going if you want. I mean, there's lots of that, but yeah, I'll wait. You know, all
right. Well,
I try not. I know people accuse me of monologuing, but I try not to take over completely.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let me go ahead and get through just a few super chats here, and then we will move over to the gauntlet. Here's a point of perspective I'd like you all to ponder. Take this debate and topic streamed knowing there are multiple differing opinions and points of view. Even so, y'all engage thoughtfully. I guess that's a congratulations to our gentleman from the original 4. Fourth Wiseman also says, understanding a law of any kind always has ambiguity inlaid within it. This is why a jury system is applied. If it is behind closed doors in a privy council decision, it still don't via vote counts. Any thoughts to that?
Yeah, one of the wonderful things about democracy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there is still some ambiguity laid within the laws, and I think Donald Trump has absolutely tried his best to try to perverse some of those ambiguities and taking them into nonsense routes. We've seen this with the 14th Amendment, where he wants to get rid of birthright citizenship. We're seeing this even to the extent that doesn't get talked about much, but the 22nd Amendment, where they're trying to it's pretty clear what the 22nd Amendment says. but they're trying to find the little Weasley hole to find a reason to bring Donald Trump into a third term. And it's those reasons. And again, like I talked about earlier with the guardrails, when Trump keeps hitting that guardrail constantly, at what point does that guardrail just break open? And now we have a full-on path towards authoritarianism. And that is why I said it is alarming and it is scary to see what is happening. Because right now, I'll be very honest, if we didn't have a judiciary that was actually trying to like keep the judiciary, for all intents and purposes, is that guardrail right now. Congress has completely ceded their power to the executive. The only branch that seems to have not really ceded that is the judicial. And thank God, because that is that guardrail. And if that thing goes, it's full force down that path line. And we're very close than we are far away from it. So,
okay. All right. Fourth Wiseman also says easy way to see a price rise or fall of something that's broad reaching is to look at either a future projection or a past deficit. Remember the daily plus annum future runs on per capita numbers. Anyone have a thought to that? No?
Don't know what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Also, Fourth Wiseman just got back. He said, I just heard Bones of Doom comment about enforcing global tariffs. Any country can do the same. That's a sovereign as nation. Same applies if you want an agency agreement. Bones, do you have anything to add on that?
Which is why Congress is legally allowed to do it and not the executive branch, funnily enough.
And then who enforces it?
Who enforces it? The American government at that point.
The executive branch?
Yeah, like it's
That's what the
supposed to.
executive does. Yes.
President? The president?
Yeah, like he's
the
supposed
legislature
to.
legislates, the executive executes. Yes, true.
There you go. There you
Gotta
go.
have a
You
law to
learned something
execute.
today.
Good job, Clay.
True.
You learned
No.
something
Clay,
today.
he fucking got it. He fucking got it. It
Legally,
took him
who
long enough.
enforces it? You learned something today.
Yeah.
Good
Trump can't
job.
just unilaterally do it. Good job. Good job, buddy. Good job, buddy. That was
True.
Civics 101. I didn't think you'd be able to pass it considering you're a First Amendment.
He will not be able to guess where the judicial power lays.
You click the button. You click the button.
True.
You click the button. You pull the
Let me know
Let me
when
you pass second grade.
Well, and on that note, wow, sent to the Big Ted said boot Bones of Doom now. Bones, I'm going to...
You bitches.
I'll set a timer for 10 minutes for now. If anybody else jumps backstage, they'll take that seat first if you don't get back up within that
Before
10, okay?
I get booted, I'm the band of conservatives. See ya.
All right, hang tight, Bones. Okay, the gauntlet is officially open. If you are watching over on the Raging Tomatoes side, I'm shutting it down now, and you can either follow the raid over to the gauntlet to continue the show, or you can go ahead and head over now if you know where you're going. All right, we'll see you on the other side.